The following is a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club. Ironclad defense has been on display at the Sinquefield Cup in St. Louis. Besieged kings remained safely locked in their castles as relentless attacks bounced harmlessly off the ramparts. Medical reasons forced Jan-Krzysztof Duda to abstain from round 2, shifting focus to the 4 remaining matchups. Fabiano Caruana had multiple opportunities, but failed to take advantage of his adversary's mistakes, settling for a draw. Decisive results remain elusive. Who will be able to catch a break and win? Round 3 of thrilling chess, coming up next.
Welcome to round 3 of the Sinquefield Cup. We are here in the Central West End, close to the World Chess Hall of Fame and St. Louis Chess Club. It's a beautiful day outside and hopefully we'll see some beautiful games today. Let's go to the studio and get started.
Welcome to St. Louis, the home of chess in America, as the St. Louis Chess Club proudly presents the Sinquefield Cup. Day 3 starts right now. Hello and welcome on this Thanksgiving Day. And so far we've been treated to a feast of chess battles, but no one seems to have broken the deadlock. Will this all change today? I don't know. Maybe it will. I'm International Master Jovanka Houska, and as always, it's a great pleasure to be alongside these two fine gentlemen, Grandmaster Yasser Seirawan and Grandmaster Peter Svidler.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Absolutely happy Thanksgiving. Only time will tell if the deadlock can be broken. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the Sinquefield Cup. As mentioned, the players have been fighting very, very hard. They've great efforts, but accurate play has saved the day, and we have all draws. Jovi, do the honors and tell us about the standings.
Yes.
Nothing changed since day one.
That may be in terms of the standings, but there is some huge news. Yesterday, the game between Richard Rapport and Jan-Krzysztof Duda was postponed because Jan-Krzysztof was feeling unwell. But as you can see there from the standings, Duda has withdrawn after round 2 because of ill health. So of course we wish Duda best of health and a speedy recovery.
And what was the official word on the withdrawal of Duda?
And there you can see the official statement that he's withdrawn from the tournament. His first round result will be voided, and future opponents will be having a bye. That means they won't be playing the game that they were meant to be playing against Jan-Krzysztof. And the tournament will be played out of 8 points instead of 9.
The format doesn't change at all, but just remind everybody of the format.
Yes. And despite this withdrawal, it is still a 10-player round robin officially, and the players will be playing at the same time control. 90 minutes for the first 40 moves, 30 minutes for the rest of the game, and of course the players do have that 30-second increment time bonus from move 1. And my favorite part, no draw offers allowed, and we have a standard point scoring system. 1 point for the win, half point for a draw.
4 games per day, but tell us about the schedule.
Yes. So the players will be playing 1 round per day. That may not sound like that much, but it is an intense, hard-fought game. And today it is Thanksgiving, it's round 3, and the players will be playing all the way through to November the 30th. But mark your calendars, because on November 26th, that is the players' rest day.
Got it. Thank you, Jovi. And Peter, like we say, the players have been fighting very hard, but all the games have been drawn.
They have, yes. So far, 9 games have been played. One of those has been voided, but no matter how you count, all of them have been drawn. And you can find all kinds of narratives if you would like for that occurrence. There you have the graphic, and I would like to go from the bottom up. You can absolutely talk about fatigue. Most of this field played in the Rapid and Blitz. Richard Rapport came here immediately after finishing the European teams. Anish Giri played the Qatar Masters and so on and so forth. But I think the major 2 reasons are the ones above fatigue there. First of all, unbelievably strong tournament. And the players, there's very little to tell them apart in terms of skill set. And in games between players of equal strength, draw remains the most probable result. And then, of course, variance. I could rage against the vagaries of variance for hours on end for various reasons. But it's just as in 2015, all 5 games in round 1 were decisive, and that was variance. 9 draws out of 9 here is just something that happens statistically. We shouldn't really read too much into it. There have also been very, very big opportunities missed, so we have already seen that things could go differently. And on that somewhat sad note, I would like to switch to a more pleasant occasion and welcome Anastasia Karlovich, the woman grandmaster. Happy Thanksgiving, Nastya.
Thank you, Peter. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And then today we have a holiday, but chess players keep playing their games. And our social media, of course, was booming yesterday when people learned the news that Jan-Krzysztof Duda didn't appear for his game. And our official photographer, Lennart Otis, caught this really important moment when Richie Rapport just learned that he's not going to play in this round 2, and Jan-Krzysztof didn't appear. We know what happened afterwards, and now we know that Duda will not continue playing in the tournament, and we wish, of course, him speedy recovery. But let's come back to Thanksgiving. Our arbiters decided to celebrate it in style, and they went for running today. 5 kilometers, the Forest Park Turkey Trot. Oh my gosh, I mean, I saw them afterwards, and I have to bring you the news. Everything is fine with them. They reached the destination, and Chris Bird, the chief arbiter of the tournament, came 7th in his age group. Congratulations to our arbiters. They're really a good team. So now, on this note, let's go back to the studio. Happy Thanksgiving, Yasser, Jovi, and Peter.
Thank you, Anastasia, and likewise, of course, I love it. The arbiters representing the chess world in the turkey trot. Go, Chris, go, Aris, and tell our viewers what they can expect for this round's pairings. Jovi, do the honors, please.
Absolutely.
Set the table.
I will set the table. At the top, we see Richard Rapport has the white pieces against Alireza Firouzja.
Right.
Anish Giri will be playing Wesley So. And there you can see that the game between Dominguez and Duda has unfortunately been grayed out. Duda, of course, withdrawing from tournament.
Right.
And Levon Aronian plays Ian Nepomniachtchi, whereas Maxime Vachier-Lagrave plays old rival Fabiano Caruana.
The players have been fighting very hard. Yesterday was a long broadcast as we see the players getting ready for this round 3. The sad note, of course, being Duda's withdrawal here at the on a Thanksgiving day, unfortunately. But what are they fighting for? Honor, glory.
Every time I see this graphic, I still get taken away. You know, first place, $100,000, as well as 12 or 13 Grand Chess Tour points. Second place, $65,000. Third place, $48,000, and there's prizes for everyone because 10th place also nets $10,500.
Very, very nice. Thank you, St. Louis Chess Club, for your generous sponsorship. As there we see Levon and Nepo getting ready to do battle.
11 shades.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I'm thinking that there might be glasses that adjust
for the lighting.
To the adequate light, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Peter, yes, I mean, commentators curse all the way down. We said round 1, the most decisive rounds, round 2, the most decisive rounds. Yesterday, Nepo had an advantage on the board, but also on the clock. And we were just lauding what a great player Nepo is when he's ahead on the clock and he puts pressure. And Leinier just held. It wasn't.
Yeah, he needed some help though, and
Right.
Jan, very understandably, I've spoken to him since. He's not very excited about what he's done to his position there. But the tournament goes on, and
Right.
he can take lots of positives out of that game because Leinier was extremely well prepared, got a very
Right.
decent position out of the opening, and then got gradually outplayed. And Jan continued finding small chances to put pressure on Leinier, and eventually. From a position we were all absolutely certain will be an easy draw for Leinier, he got to a very, very winning situation and then failed to convert somehow.
There you go. I have MVL versus Fabiano. Fabi's has just been having an absolutely marvelous year. He's leading the Grand Chess Tour, coming into the Sinquefield Cup. Obviously, it would require an epic failure by him not to win the Grand Chess Tour. And the strange part is, this matchup could play a very critical role. Just imagine. We
were calling our shots now, right?
Right?
Yeah.
This is the moment to do it.
Didn't you make a prediction?
Right?
Yasser?
MVL needs to win this game. All the games can be drawn.
Yeah.
Then MVL would be first. And then I think we'd actually get a Grand Chess Tour tie. The crazy part, because of the withdrawal. And here we have it, Bishop E7. Fabi still not playing.
Fabi continuing to not play his course against MVL. And this actually brought back memories because before Fabi, and I'm sure his course is much more updated, and generally Fabi I would trust more in terms of opening theory than I would trust myself. But somewhere in the middle, the 2010s, like around the 2015, I actually recorded the course on the Archangels.
Really?
And then a few months after the course came out, I played it with black against MVL. And I was in some trouble, but managed not to lose when MVL, basically knowing what I'm intending to do, had sort of very targeted preparation against one of the lines in the course. Fabi declining so far to paint such a huge target on his back and continues to play other things.
E7.
I've noticed that as a trend, that once you release a course or a book on a certain opening, you tend to avoid playing it. Just because, as everyone, and as Peter mentioned, everyone is looking at your course. They know what you're going to play. They're also going to judge you if you forget your own recommendations.
Right.
Have you ever written an opening book?
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
The Karo Khan, and I back my words by playing these variations, and I actually love it when my opponents come prepared and they target me, and I get a chance to outplay them or refute them. By the way, we're going right, and they're not even, Fabi is not even hinting that he might have played a Marshall. He just plays D7, D6, C3.
Yeah, he's done this in the Rapid and Blitz as well. And we assume MVL will play H3. Here, MVL is not a 94 player.
Right.
And in the Rapid and Blitz, Fabi played the classical Chigorin, starting with Knight A5, Bishop C2, C5 here.
Right.
He might opt for yet another somewhat... he also played Bishop E6, I think, in one game, right? So he continues jumping around. And today he goes for the Zaitsev variation with Bishop B7.
My goodness!
So
a lot of jumping around.
Covering a lot of ground here. Yeah.
Wow!
Zaitsev is one of my absolute favorite Ruy pieces. I've played a lot of it with black in my youth, and also with white. D4, I expect Rook E8, and there's a lot of very, very interesting and actually very varied positions you can get here. The structures are very, very interesting.
I just wanted to mention one thing with Black's move order. If you play Rook E8, as you've got as played, White can force the draw. Well, not force the draw, but initiate that. Oh, chestnut.
Yeah, Anatoly Karpov in his career, he had the Zaitsev as his main principal defense against 1E4, and a lot of players did go for that chestnut, as you just said, the repetition. Famously, in the game between John Vandervelde and Anatoly Karpov, the players repeated the position 4 times. Neither player claimed the draw, and then John played Knight D2, and the game continued. After
was the game drawn?
Eventually. But after the 4-move repetition was eschewed. Do we have Rook E8? Yes, we do.
Reminds me of the old story about two Englishmen eating frogs, yeah?
No, I don't know that.
One Englishman offers I don't know why Englishman, but it's an Englishman in the story I read, offers a wager that he will eat a live frog for a pound, and proceeds to do so and earns his pound, and then the other one says, okay, now I would like my pound back, so I would like to also propose I eat a frog for a pound. And that also happens, and they look at each other and they ask themselves, why have we just eaten live frogs? for no money exchanging hands at the end of this transaction. So why not just continue playing 95, 93?
Knight F3, just to get some extra time in the board. The crazy part is in the number of the Zaitsevs that I remember from the 1990s, especially the World Championship match between Anatoly Karpov and Garry Kasparov. Some of those lines were incredibly sharp, and they went very, very deeply, Peter. Starting with the A4,
the sharpest
H6.
line here would be starting from here, and then we go bishop c2. The point of the Zaitsev, just to stop there and illustrate a strategic idea of black setup, is we are aiming most of our pieces at the e4 pawn, making it very difficult for white. He would very much like to play knight g2, g3 here. But if you try to do it in legal ways, you do lose your central pawn straight away, which is why the major move here is bishop c2, to which black replies by taking, going knight b4, bishop b1. There are other moves here rather than c5. I myself, I think, played this line quite a bit. You can also decline to take on d4. There's all kinds of sidelines available, but the absolute main line is c5, d5, knight d7. And this is an unbelievably complex position, which has been discussed, as Yasser correctly said, famously in a bunch of games between Karpov and Kasparov in their early matches. And obviously theory has progressed a great deal since then.
That's what I wanted to ask. What is the current state of theory?
I think people hold. I think the absolutely crazy lines have disappeared. I think first of all, when I played the Zaitsev with black, I very much liked playing a5 here because I felt the move c4, which Karpov always preferred, although he played a5 a little bit, but he mostly played c4. I didn't really like studying the unbelievable amounts of theory that come from here. And also, like lines like the one which I think currently is very, very topical, they were annoying me because I felt that even if black actually ends up holding, which I think is the current state, I think this position is supposed to be okay for black. We are really only fighting for equality here. It didn't feel... The positions after f5 become absolutely crazy very, very quickly. Whereas this is a much more controlled environment where it feels like we're playing for two results. In the meantime, knight g5 is on the board. I'm pretty sure we will not have a draw here, but just to mention that MVL decided to save two moves, get closer to the time control. He is not going to repeat. So I think the current state is, as is often the case, the machines support almost anything and say you haven't really made enough mistakes to lose yet. But you do have to defend a slightly unpleasant position. I could be wrong. I haven't really returned to this material in detail recently.
One of the really great lines, if you don't mind, it goes with it's the a5 line, not the c5, not the move c5.
Where are we?
Yeah, you take a5, rook a6, and this was the novelty of the year, and I really remember this vividly. It was in New York, knight h2.
Knight h2 followed by f3, yeah.
Because I had been working with Jan Timman and also analyzing this position with John Fedorowicz and a number of other grandmasters, and we were always focusing on rook on a3 to e3, trying to blast our way through the center. And it was this move knight h2, and then the follow-up move f3.
Yeah, the idea isn't as it might look to bring the rook over to g3 and give mate. The idea, I can't remember exactly which move.
Say g6. It does.
Yeah, the idea was to play f3.
Yes.
And this frees up this knight on g2 because the pawn on e4 is now completely protected.
Yes.
Giving white time to play knight c4, perhaps even knight f1, take the rook out, play b3, bishop b2. Whereas for black, now that we've removed our typical normal counterplay that you get in the Zaitsev, you're kind of stuck looking for ideas. And that first game, Gary won very, very convincingly. I'm sure play can be improved, but I remember that game, and that was a very stunning concept.
Yeah, but the whole idea of knight h2 followed by f3, when our focus had always been like mate. That was fantastic. Other games, Jovi, where would you like to take us?
And let's go to the top of the table. Maybe
Okay.
Richard Rapport against Alireza Firouzja.
He hasn't played in a long time, this Richie Rapport.
No, I mean, he's probably feeling the rust after that one-day absence.
Absolutely. Well, what we have is, once again, E4 players are really having a hard time everywhere you look, whether it be in the Berlins or in the Russian defense. You have obstacles. And here, Alireza, playing the Russian defense, knight c3 takes. And remarkably for me, the theory in this particular line seems to just have exploded, and Peter, knight b6 is not on my radar.
And it's not on anyone's radar.
I was about to say, yeah.
And nobody else's either.
Jovanka's screen is the one that has previous games.
Right.
And currently there is nothing there.
Right.
This is a very, very novel approach. This position obviously is tremendously well studied. Black
Right.
plays, I mean, knight f6 I think is the most topical move
Of course,
these
certainly.
days. But you could also try other things. But I have never seen the knight being put on b6. Engine's initial reaction is, why have you done that? You're in trouble
what are you
now.
doing?
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure this is not a misclick, and Alireza has a clear idea behind it. For white, I would just... Richard will now probably think for quite some time, because you do need to figure out why your opponent placed his piece on such an awkward square.
Right.
But in a blitz game, the bishop would already have been on d3, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
Because that supports the two plans that white have here. One very obvious plan is to play something like h4, followed by h5, or sometimes even followed by knight g5, and then direct assault on the black king side. And also just putting the rook on e1 and saying I have better control over the central files is also perfectly valid. And yeah, as I said, currently I'm not entirely sure what is going to be the supporting idea. Maybe knight a4.
Whoa.
Once, having said A kind of thing, we've played knight b6, so we have to justify it somehow. The idea of bringing it over to c5, we could have done this in one tempo. But maybe there's this idea of c6 followed by queen b6. I am somewhat grasping at straws here, because the engine suggests playing bishop g4, and then of course not taking on f3, because opening the g file for the white rooks generally doesn't end very well. It looks like the structure is completely ruined, but in fact the pair of bishops, the pawn gets up to h5, so that you can never really react by any pawn moves. And then you start putting a lot of pressure on the g7 pawn. This is bad. So the engine goes, currently at least, goes bishop h5, g4, bishop g6. But
You're giving white tempi.
I would really hate this for black. Like knight g4, knight f5 looks very interesting. h4, h5 looks very interesting. It feels like we're getting an absolutely dreamy version of these types of positions, where normally you need to work really, really hard to get this much this quickly.
Yeah.
And how do these players do in their head-to-head, Jovi?
Oh, well, we'll find out. I don't think they've played that many games, and there you can see just one win for Richard Rapport, 2 wins for Alireza Firouzja, and 3 draws.
Okay.
I have this vague recollection of that one win coming in the candidates.
Yes.
The one that Richard won, I think,
Right.
was a very, very interesting game that he won. I have a feeling with the black pieces even, but they all somewhat merged together in my head. But
If I can play devil's advocate for just a moment, knight d6, bishop d3, bishop e6. Let's go.
yeah, let's protect the. Actually, it says let's not protect anything. Yeah.
I
Let's-
really
let's
wanted
go.
you to play b3
And if you
so I
go-
could go a5 and you
Well,
would go
I
a4.
was thinking this construct, because I kind of seen this idea of knight b6, knight a4 in a Kara card, but there, you need c6 and d. So c6.
Here,
No.
No,
are
you
we
want to
including
go.
bishop e6?
You want to go.
Take the pawn.
Okay.
b3.
Yeah,
a5.
this sometimes works actually,
King
but
b2,
but maybe
a4.
not,
Let's go.
but maybe not here.
Oh, I wanted you to take my bishop.
No, no.
Peter, you're not playing ball.
I am refusing to play ball here.
Yeah, okay.
King takes a2, a takes b3. I'm pretty sure would have been very, very good for black instantly. Yeah, just
This is
completely
where
lost,
where I was trying to guess.
d5 is winning,
Yeah,
d4
yeah.
is winning,
Is
queen
crap.
d7 maybe also winning. But
Yeah.
the point is
Rook
we have time
A1.
to play rook a1, and it's still like it looks still like the king is on b3, but now it has the c2 square, and we have preemptively controlled the a file. So this, according to the engine, is nowhere near enough compensation for the
Gotcha.
piece.
Okay.
And can you play very provocatively instead? So, okay, well, I know the whole thing is
I
provocative.
wasn't provocative.
Okay, yeah, but you, that was a nice trick actually that you showed us there. Bishop takes a2. I didn't know that one, but okay. So after h4, could you do something? Because knight g5 is really annoying.
Yeah, I'm curious about queen d7 because the engine does suggest playing b3. So what happens if, let's say, we go knight d7, b3, e5?
Yeah.
This is interesting because it gives white a huge edge after a4, but you have to wonder why we're not doing this. I guess the king is, it's actually good that we haven't played king b1 yet, because
So
we're going to be
king
hiding
d2.
it on d2.
That's a nice move, queen e3, making luft for the
And
king.
the rook is not on e8 yet. The queen looks somewhat vulnerable on e3, but black needs a couple of moves to start exploiting it, and it seems like they're not going to be in time because there's bishop b5, even king d2 here works because the queen will have squares along the third rank. But this maybe gives us a bit of a window into how this might work.
You're right.
Because if queen d7 actually successfully provokes b3, I'm not entirely sure why we're not playing knight g5. It's not taking on a2, it's just playing bishop f5 here.
Right.
But this,
now you
once
have
again,
g4,
right?
Takes.
And
takes.
okay, once again, now we see why the knight is on b6. There are no checks from c4 or d5 squares. But this looks risky. I don't know. Machine says it's fine, but Machine says everything is fine.
Yeah, it does seem suspicious that
seems
black
very,
can play
very-
like this.
Yeah.
To
because
my
the plan
eyes.
is quite simple, right?
Rook
You just
e1.
leave the knight on g5,
Yeah,
rook
and-
e1.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, we probably want to play queen a4, so it's understandable that it includes b3. And now, even more shockingly, it suggests that even this position is fine.
Wow.
Which, I mean, I understand the argument being made. We will be, h7 is vulnerable, but we will play rook f7. It will be very nicely protected. The knight on b6 actually once again controls important squares. There will be also, eventually these two pawns will come off the board, and there will be a very nice f5 square for the black heavy pieces. But yeah, this is, you need to know.
It's dangerous,
You
right?
need to know.
Looks it.
And immediately you're thinking about queen sacrifices on g6.
G6 and bishop on d4 and long
Absolutely, yeah.
diagonals.
But the thing is, you need to know, but he does know. It's his novelty, so he will have a very intimate understanding of which position he can go for and which he can't. So, apart from bishop d3, we can obviously start with h4 immediately. There's nothing wrong with
stuff.
It's a very, as Yasser is saying, you do this in pretty much every single position in these variations of the Petrov.
Could the idea also be revolving around queen e8? Because I've seen that idea. I mean, it was utilized, I remember, a long, long time ago by Hampi Kanaru. And she was to provoke b, yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't believe this is, it seems like it just fails to believe this is fast enough. Here it even ignores a4, like it goes bishop d3, a4, and just says, okay.
Like what?
It says, you've misplaced your pieces so much, I will somewhat happily take with the c pawn, put the king on b1. Bishop g5 is already a very, very annoying threat.
And it would be so much better if the knight were on f6.
It really would, yeah, it really would.
Teleport it to the S6 square.
Honestly, a somewhat mystifying decision, but a very welcome one, because everything we're currently looking at here seems very sharp. Seems like black is intentionally taking more risks than you normally do in this line.
It's a challenge.
And this is something that we absolutely have to welcome.
Absolutely. And Richard, taking his time as he's addressing this novelty. In the old days, we would have a time control of 40 moves in 2.5 hours, followed by an adjournment. So the rule of the day, the principle of the day is when your opponent hit you with a novelty, you just spent 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Thinking it over. Wow, we don't have the luxury today of 30 minutes, but Richie definitely trying to understand the thought process behind this move. Let's jump to the game of Anish, Giri, Wesley So. The players have actually reached a position that has become suddenly topical again, Peter.
This is once again the same anti-Berlin that we've been discussing during the earlier rounds.
Exactly.
We already had, actually we now no longer have a pure Berlin light because that game has been unpersoned.
Right.
That was the game between Anish, Giri and Duda in round
Didn't
one,
happen,
which saw,
Peter.
yeah.
It doesn't exist.
I don't know why I'm talking about things which are entirely imaginary. But D3 remains the more popular move. bishop c5, bishop c6, dc6. Yesterday, Fabi played c3 in this position.
Right.
This game follows the more well-trodden path here, knight bd2, knight d7, knight castles first. People are playing a5 in all of these positions, just fighting for space on the queen side. Once again, looks like there might be better uses for your time, but Wesley, of course, is a very, very good specialist in this, and so he feels this is the most important thing to do for now. Knight c4, queen e7, and once again we see this move c2, c3, suggesting that d3, d4 is very much the order of the day.
Like in the Levon, Aronian, and a Fabi game of yesterday. C2, C3 with the idea of D3, D4, who's still on sacred turf here, I imagine.
I think there's
games
some games for sure, and I have a feeling I may have even seen this, and in particular this line rings some bells.
B5.
I think b5 is required, but after b5 you're supposed to be completely fine, because you don't actually have a particularly good square for this bishop. You don't really want to put it on d6 because you might actually lose it.
Right.
It runs into trouble.
Oops.
And putting it on this diagonal, bishop a7, white could very seriously consider maybe even knight e4 is hanging. Yeah, bishop a7 is also playable, but you do have to now at least think about the pawn on a5 hanging.
Yeah.
And this is why I think they start with b5. This structure looks really strange for a second, but then you realize both e4 and c5 are hanging, so yes, it's not really very beautiful, but black will have piece activity and also probably will be a pawn up in one move's time.
Right.
Yeah, and for now, let's take a look at their record.
How do they match up?
There you can see. Everything
Wow.
is even. 3 wins, 3 losses for Anish, Giri and Wesley, and 22 draws.
Now, at one moment, Wesley's like maybe #2 player in the world, so I would have thought, I mean, Anish has always kind of been in the world's top 10, but not at that very highest #2, so I would have thought that Wesley had a little bit of an edge. Not at all.
To my eyes, the surprising thing there is, I honestly would have thought they would have played more by this point. They are such a, part of
Fixtures,
the furniture.
yeah.
Part of the furniture in the
Yeah.
top 10 for the past, I would say, 10
Good
years,
point, yeah.
maybe 8 years. But
They would be playing in the Grand Chess Tour, they would be playing in Tata Steel, they would be playing in Norway
this is
Chess.
classical games, right? So
Right.
Still,
they would have played an awful lot of games
Yeah,
against each
they
other
are
on Rapid and Blitz. And in their last Norway Chess encounter, it was a draw in the classical game, and then of course in the Armageddon game, there Anish drew with the black pieces and took the points.
I see Anish pacing. Are you a pacer, or do you have Sitzfleisch at the board, Jovi?
I'm a pacer. I need to walk off that nervous energy. I don't even need to
ask you. Peter, you're always walking around and looking at all the games.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that Anish gave this impassioned speech, I think after round 1, about the fight for supremacy in terms of the best prepared player in the world.
Right.
He is, but he doesn't mention it very often these days, but he is very easily the nuttiest dresser in the chess world. Right?
Good point.
He holds that title for...
I always want, I'm partial to Levon. Levon, he makes his fashion statements as well.
Absolutely.
But I agree, he looks very dapper.
In a more classical sense, because
Right.
Levon goes in all kinds of directions. I also love Levon when he is at his most flamboyant, but Anish is your picture of a...
classical there.
Yeah,
For
maybe
me,
we
Levon
should
is a
ask...
bit risque.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
We should ask Derek what he
wears
thinks.
T-shirts saying catastrophe.
Anish's dress.
Catastrophe with a picture of a cat. And I'm like, you're not priming yourself the right way.
Castles, Jovi.
Yeah.
Is this the most popular move in this
It
particular?
It was actually the only move that had been tried by Black in the database. And funnily enough, There aren't too many games here,
If
but
we do
no one has
continue-
played the direct d4.
No
I mean,
one has played.
No.
You mean I've got to be the flag bearer and
You
show
have
the
to
novel moves?
carve out the way.
Right.
But, rook e1 has been tried, queen c2 I'm not so sure about.
E1.
And h3.
Okay, rook e1 I can support. I mean, the idea is very simply a number of lines where we've played d4. Peter's boldly pointing out that the e4 pawn can get tagged by the queen. So a preparatory move like rook e1 certainly deserves attention. You said queen c2 as
Queen
well?
c2 and b3. My eyesight was failing me. b3 is another move that's been tried.
That
But,
one's not the most natural. Queen c2, maybe. Rook e1, yes. And d4, yes.
But actually, I'm just looking at the ratings of people
Yeah.
playing this, and no grandmasters have tried this one as white.
Peter, in the games of yesterday, where with Fabi and Levon, I have to remember the names, you had mentioned several times that the bishop needed to go to g3.
Needed is a strong word, but I think the
aspiring.
the fashionable solution is to bring it. Yeah,
Bishop
I should take rook e1 back. You can still do it here, but here I think we've wasted so much time on things which aren't very central to our plan here. That after, let's say, b5 followed by a4. The point of this plan is to do it in such a way that d4 will actually provoke ed4 strongly enough. But here black, I think, quite happily will preserve this shape. And without the central pair, like if you cannot provoke ed4 fast enough, and also even if you compare this with what Fabi got yesterday, I think black
is happy for his
very happy for the amount of space that that he already got. And the engine prefers this position quite seriously for black, actually.
Wow.
Okay.
With all the space, and it's understandable. We just burned 2 tempi.
Right.
The knight went to c4 and then returned to d2.
Is there ever a possibility to maintain the tension in the center for black? Because I've got this old burn, the old game rather burning in my memory, where black goes g5. I think it was from Max Erver's middle game book, where he talks about going g5 and saying, you lock down the pawn break.
So no f2, f4 for you. We're just going to
somewhere here.
Yes, I mean, I'm just thinking, well,
the idea is
there, you maintain the tension.
Yeah, you absolutely can. I think g5 is a bit too radical, but you absolutely can play some move like queen e6 or h6 or rook e8, I guess, or bishop b7 maybe even. It's fine, but I think white will welcome having a target and having a much more clear-cut plan here, because you will probably play rook e1, try to get this knight over to e3. And yes, the bishop on b6 looks very promising, but the stable situation in the center and provides white with a lot more clarity compared to the positions after ed4, cd4. And c5 is just concretely very strong, but even if you don't play c5, even if, let's say, you start with bishop b7, rook e8, and eventually play c6, c5, these types of positions are much harder for white to control. And once again, comparing this with the game Fabi played against Levon yesterday, this is clearly much more attractive for black, because there's a lot more dynamic possibilities black can avail themselves of.
The knights just don't have any good rolls, actually.
Right. As I'm looking at the current position with the bishops on c1 and the variations that you've been showing me, Peter, where black's pawn goes to a4, followed by b5, it's sort of like the queen side gets locked down. Is there an argument to be made for the move a2, a4?
I think there's always an argument for them for the move a4. Black will probably, I don't know in which order. I quite like the idea of putting the queen on e6, although specifically here it apparently allows this tactical detail, which the engine very much likes. So let's start specifically so that we don't blunder it. Let's start with b7, b6.
Right.
And then you want to put the bishop on a6, once again suggesting to white that this knight on c4 is either a target, or if it retreats, you've played c3 and haven't played d4, so the pawn on d3 will very much become a target.
Now I'm warming to the whole concept that you showed of b3. I kind of understand why people are playing the move b2, b3.
And then we get to a kind of a balanced situation where black with the pawn on a5 obviously is not going to be pushing for b6, b5 very much. But I'm also not sure what we want with white. Let's say some position like this. There's going to be a lot of shuffling going on. If we're talking about plans, perhaps I can play f6 and then get this knight over to e6. So that would be an ideal.
Can I show one trap? But okay, the trap is involving white playing b4.
Okay.
But okay, it has to be done at the right moment.
So you want
say
to play
for
bishop d2?
So say before going say you go b6. It doesn't quite work, but say you instead of going b6, you move, or at some point white makes a pass move, and then I know, bishop g5 and knight f6. And then you get it. My idea of going b4 and then you go d4.
Yes.
Although it doesn't quite work because of the p8.
Yeah, there are some tactical. but the point of chasing it to
really
d6.
close on this one.
The point of chasing it to d6 and then creating this fork is very valid, and the fact that our board laughs at us should be disregarded.
Right.
Interestingly, Anish is still thinking because, once again, returning to his, I think, quite well substantiated claim of being in the running for the most prepared player in the world. Exactly. Berlin will never be a surprise when you're playing Wesley, so interesting that he hasn't made a move here yet.
Especially as he's the one initiating c3 and knight c4.
Yeah, it's a rare line, and it seems to be his choice rather than Wesley's.
Let's go to our final game that we haven't gandered at, and that's the one. That's MVL.
Levon Aronian.
This is
Jan
actually
Nepomniachtchi.
Levon and Jan.
This is the only one that's actually opened with d4. So already it's pulling out my heartstrings.
Okay, Queen's Gambit declined again in my day. You know, it was incredibly popular. Knight c3, Nimzo Indians were very, very popular. There was only one guy on the circuit that would play this quiet move, and that was Artur Yusupov. And oftentimes he left his pawn on c2 as well. Yeah. He would just play e3, b3, bishop e2,
that's
bishop d3.
The old Zuckertort. Yeah.
Yes. I'd say e6. E6. Let's do it. E6.
Is that not the collie? Sorry, just to pull you up.
The collie you keep. I played the collie my entire childhood, and the difference here, as I understand it, if you play the kind of a pure reverse Meran, where you just go for the e4 break. Let's say in this position you put the pawn on c3, and then you go knight bd2, and like the absolute central line of the collie would be just a pure Meran with colors reversed and white having an extra tempo. Something like this.
Okay.
That's the collie. And if you play b3 here instead of c3,
which is what Artur has been doing.
Yes.
This is the Zuckertort.
Oh my God, I had it wrong the whole time. I thought it was the other way around.
Welcome to the show. Jovi, happy to. But I'm saying it was actually very funny because we would make fun of Artur and his, seizing the defensive with the white pieces. Then he just happily go and mate people.
Yeah.
Bishop b2.
He was very much playing this with the bloodthirstiest of intentions.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's interesting how this is now very much part of the zeitgeist via different move orders to a degree, because people do what they do quite a lot these days is all this kind of stuff, right?
Yes, with e3, yes. And queen c2.
Which is spiritually very close to what Artur was doing, and often will actually transpose later on. So in a way, he was following in the footsteps of the giants, because Zuckertort obviously played world championship matches and so on. But he also was the foreshadower for the current opening trends. But yeah, e3 here, if we are to explain it in the context of the game between Levon and Jan, Jan had a game in the Rapid and Blitz where he went for this line.
Right.
And perhaps Levon is unwilling to discuss it today because it's quite sharp. White, I think, normally should get a little bit of something, but it's a line that you perhaps don't want to play on the day.
Right.
So he went e3, which really isn't supposed to give you very much, because giving up on the opportunity to develop the bishop on c1.
Put your bishop outside of the pawn structure.
To any of these squares. Shouldn't be very much. And he's connecting this with a very, very odd idea to my eyes of just playing c takes d5 here. Not even b3, bishop b2, just cd5, e5, bishop d3, played by Levon here. This really shouldn't be anything. But these days, people very happily, I think, aim for just a playable position, kind of disregarding what the evaluation is.
Yeah,
and how do they match up, Jovi?
Yeah, let's have a look at their head-to-head scores. And course, these players have played each other
And
a lot of
here's
times.
another
and there you
one
can
I
see
would have guessed wrongly.
Yeah, Levon has 2 to Ian Nepomniachtchi's 5.
I would
And
have
if they
thought
had
that
8 draws. I thought it would have been even Stevens, to be honest with you.
I thought
but-
even Levon might have caught Jan as a junior coming up the ranks, but not the case. By the way, B7, B6, and developing, trading the light squared bishops, I kind of find a little confounding.
Yeah, I'm
Peter,
not sure.
Bishop
Jan
B6?
also played it incredibly quickly, which is
Right.
the interesting bit here. I suspect maybe he hasn't. One thing, I don't really want to oversell this, but
Sure.
Jan has been known to sort of feel the previous day's play still in his bones
He carries the luggage
during the
of,
next round. And
of
yesterday certainly hurt him.
Right.
Because it's not often that you miss such a clearly winning position. And
Right.
we were discussing it live on air. It was the last game running, and at some
Yes.
point there was this position where I was extolling the virtue of the move F4, and then I also mentioned in passing. We can perhaps, just for a second, maybe some viewers have not
Seen.
okay, it's gone now. I can't actually do that.
Don't do that.
Hang on a second. Maybe I can. Yeah, I think I can.
Figure it out?
I can figure it out. Yeah.
It's
Good
the
for
king
you.
versus king.
It was the king versus king at
It's
the
at
very
the top.
top, I think.
Yeah. So just
For
to-
those of you who missed the show
Yeah.
yesterday,
Just for the viewers who perhaps have not seen this very dramatic moment, at this point, Leinier had maybe a minute.
yes,
Jan had
less.
about 20. And the engine was showing me that F4 is completely winning. I could also see that F3 is completely winning. But the somewhat upsetting part about this position is that basically the move that Jan played doesn't win. Pretty much every other legal move wins, including, for instance, the move Bishop D3 F1.
Wow.
So very understandably for somebody who is a very, very good technical player normally, and this is borne out by the previous 20 moves, because by move 35 we were saying, okay, Leinier is not losing this.
Exactly. And,
And he actually managed to get this pawn from D3 to D6,
Right.
and to create problems for black, and completely outplayed Leinier from a position where I really thought he has no realistic winning chances whatsoever.
Right.
But then, the fact that he ended up making pretty much the only legal move here, which doesn't win, will have hurt him quite badly.
But okay.
And jumping into the game here, because we did see this trade of the light square bishops, bishop a6, knight takes a6. And then if I'm on the white side, I'm thinking to myself, I really need to play the move e3, e4. If I try to tuck my bishop onto b2, I really don't feel I'm going to get any advantage. So Levon did play knight e5, looking towards occupying the c6 square. Bishop to d6, queen e2, hit the knight on a6.
Knight needs to go back.
Knight has to retreat.
And
Knight
Levon
b8,
very logically
e4.
goes e3, e4.
And everything's fine until I saw the move knight takes e4, which I find very surprising. And I don't know, Jovi, is that move? I mean, if you're going to take on e4, knight takes e4 doesn't seem
No, I
the way
think
to
it's
do it,
it's
or-
specifically very logical in this very context,
Because of
because
bishop
you do
g5.
not want to be allowing bishop g5.
You don't
pin-
want to get the pin.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
pin
Gotcha.
is very, very annoying.
Gotcha.
Playing knight takes e4, of course, involves having to calculate, let's say, this position.
Right.
But I guess very, very importantly, you do have the move c7, c6, because I was wondering what Jan is even intending after
Exactly.
knight takes d5.
Right.
But after c6, let's say d queen takes d5, the engine suggests this endgame is pretty much fine.
And you couldn't throw in anything fancy, like for instance,
Knight
knight
takes-
takes b6.
There's bishop takes a, we
I
can,
know that there's not bishop takes
we
h2.
can compete in the desperado trades.
But here, you know, the knight on b8 is...
Yeah, but structurally black is ahead. You are
is
correct about the activity of the pieces, but structurally we really don't care about the lack of the pawn on a7. The lack of the pawn on h2 will be more keenly felt. And also, like, imagine eventually I get this knight to d5.
Nah, that's not a nice...
That's not going
just-
to happen, though.
Yeah.
Because the bishop will come to e3, the f rook will come to c1, and then
No.
I'm going to ask you questions. Yeah, they ignore, right? You're not threading anything.
Queen h4 check, rook h5.
Maybe not yet, but no. honestly,
The king will run.
I would start feeling very, very nervous roundabout here, because I think black is a couple of moves away from being seriously better.
Right.
Engine suggests with a nicely timed a4 and b4, reminding black that maybe what I said about the lack of
missing a pawn is wrong.
is not entirely true.
Right.
It says black isn't better, but I think most people would choose to play black here because.
And if I do it in the current position, Peter, a little bit more conventionally, I take on e4, knight takes e4, queen takes e4.
We'll just go knight d7.
And don't I get to occupy c6 with some
I'm guessing knight f6 is good. Queen f6 is also fine, yeah.
knight?
I thought knight f6, but actually it prefers queen f6. But I quite like this, let's say queen f3. I wanted to play queen e8, trade it on e4. And
Oh, so bishop g5, queen
bishop
e4.
g5, bishop g5, knight e4 is attacking all of your pieces.
Yes.
Uh-oh, that's
Whoops.
an alert. c6 is hanging, g5 is hanging.
So you will get some kind of position like this, where yes, this is a very nice square, but I've managed to get rid of the queens. We'll play rook f8. I don't know. Eventually, bring the knight over to d5. Play f6, king f7. It's a bit empty. I mean, it looks very beautiful, but it's not really hampering black all that much.
Well,
The problem I'm having is I have won games thanks solely to the fact I have this knight sitting on this incredibly powerful c6 square. So I do have this baggage of this pattern.
I don't disagree generally.
Yeah.
I just think that specifically, this is not the Catalan. This knight on c6, once again, if we return to this position for a second, it doesn't really have targets, and black is incredibly solid. So the plan for black would be to put this pawn on e5. I think, once again, knight f6, knight d5 is very much part of my play. Rook goes to e8, f6, king f7. It's not pressuring anything. You don't have the open c file.
the bishop on d6 is such a
and
magnificent
it's
piece
true.
as well.
Yeah, I'm going to put this on my board because I'm just looking at this position once more. I go knight takes e4. I'm just mesmerized by this occupation of the c6 square, and it just feels right to me. And knight d7, this move knight here, knight to f6, this move queen c6, queen e8, and okay, I'm not thrilled about the move rook d1.
But maybe you can go bishop d2. Oh,
Knight
knight
e4.
e5,
Knight
a4
e4
again.
still attacks everything.
Goodness me.
I'm liking d5.
Yeah, d5. Let's play queen e4 anyway.
Queen e4. I'm trading, and we reach this position where, you know, like again, if you get to play a5 before I get to play b4 and give myself a target, I get it. Rook e1, rook e8, and then I'm just asking myself, is the knight looks pretty, but maybe that's all it is.
Yeah,
nice.
I think it's a very nice picture, but it's not really
I
generating.
think it's
Yeah.
primarily
And
because
also,
of the bishops.
knowing this is
the white
Jan,
bishop
by the
is
way.
so bad.
Yeah.
But by the way,
Yeah.
this is all moot point because he's actually played knight takes d5.
He did.
Yes, and now it's
And that
decision
was the-
time after bishop takes. Knight, queen takes, knight in the center, c6. Another big question here for white is, you know, do you play pawn takes bishop?
Queen takes
Do you
e4,
go
c7, c.
queen takes bishop?
The strange
Do you
thing is,
throw in
it's
a check?
this feels almost reminiscent of some Petrov defense positions that Jan has essayed.
In particular, after g5, queen d5, there are some structures in the Petrov which are very, very similar.
Right.
I want to say that queen e5, I think, is by far the most toothless move you can play
Yes.
here, because after c takes d5, generally with these central pawns, you very much want the white bishop to be a light squared one.
Yeah, you would like to.
So if we make a few indifferent moves here, such as let's say bishop e3, knight c6, queen goes somewhere.
Yep.
Let's say g3, black goes queen d7. Yeah. People have lost these positions with white.
Easily, the dark squared bishops end up being.
It's equal for now.
passive.
It's equal for now. But people have lost these types of positions with white because the knight ends up actually being slightly more versatile here than the bishop. So of the options left has here, this one I think is the emptiest. D takes e5 is something. Knight takes b6 is a very ambitious move because it really disbalances the structure.
But I'll go with d takes e5. How
Looks
did we
very
go?
natural, right?
Yeah, I think we take with the queen because c takes d5, queen g4 I don't like. That
Yes.
seems dangerous.
Okay, so taking with the queen, And let's just pause here for a moment, because he said he was afraid of Queen G4. And is he misguiding us, or is he leading us to the promised land?
D played, by the way.
He played D6.
Yeah, he did play D.
Yeah.
So we're expecting Queen takes D5. Queen swap. Okay, maybe it's toothless, maybe not. But let's just see the Queen swap and Rook D1.
No, I wasn't calling this toothless.
But
I was specifically talking about Queen takes.
no,
Queen
I
takes,
know,
yeah.
I know. I just like the word. The idea here, though, Peter, is if you do play Rook D8, and maybe that's actually your...
No. The intention here is to go knight c6.
Of course, because Rook D8, Bishop G5, followed by Rook C1, and I'd
yeah.
be the first
That is-
to grab the open C file. Here you're required to play Knight C6, as you were about to say.
Whoa,
What?
very interesting.
He took with the pawn.
He did
Yeah,
take
Jan
the
just
pawn.
completely disagrees with seems
Everything
like
we just
everything
said.
we're saying. Yeah.
Commentator's curse. I think from the very start, where we came with all of our beautiful statistics about the decisive number of games in round one, it's been downhill, you know. And I thought we did it yesterday with Leinier.
No. One stat still remains.
What's that?
Leinier Dominguez
Undefeated.
is, as of yet, undefeated.
And yet yesterday,
yesterday
we were calling, oh, he's going to lose, he's going to lose. No, we were saying he's going to draw, he's going to draw. Then it was like we were going to lose, he was going to lose, and his commentator's curse. C6 takes D5,
Yeah,
Peter.
Queen G4 played.
Queen G4.
And
I'm assuming it's Queen D7?
or Queen c8. In fact, it's not actually that bad, specifically because we have this option of immediately knocking the queen off the absolutely perfect square on the board. G4 is where it should be.
Right.
Because currently, of course, the big
Bishop
threat is Bishop
H6.
H6, using the pin along the G file to just win material.
Right.
But both Queen D7 and Queen C8 are playable. Queen D7 already played. Jan is playing incredibly quickly today. To the
Okay.
degree that you have to wonder if maybe he's not bluffing and he actually looked at this for some reason. But honestly, I doubt it. I'm not really buying that. And the point here is, if you're obliged to drop it back to G3,
very
you can play something like Queen F5, Queen E6 as well. But I don't really want to provoke you to play F4. I want to play Queen F5 first, with the point being that I now have the move Queen G6 to defang, so to speak. The move.
Absolutely.
I'm
There goes
very much
no attack anymore.
dentistry related
Yes.
similes today. So Queen F5, and then we want to play Knight C6. And once again, if we make a couple of
Indifferent moves.
pointless waiting moves here, some position like this will
Easily
start looking
worse.
very promising for black, because the
Yeah.
G pawn will run,
Yeah,
and
but-
this is a very nice knight.
Isn't the plan here in these type of positions to run with the pawns?
But the queen is in the way, and
Yeah.
with how few light pieces are remaining on the board, it's actually quite efficient at being in the way. You can start with Rook D1, and then, having provoked Rook D1, now the machine goes Queen E6 and says, your F4, F5 plans are much less efficient now because there is no Rook on F1. Let's say F4, Queen Knight C6, and if needed, we can also, perhaps at some point,
That's
consider
a French
transferring
defense player, yeah.
transferring that knight over to F5. But I think maybe the simpler way of dealing with the advance of the pawns would be to prepare and push for F5, F7, F6. And yes, in particular, if you push F6, let's say, just to illustrate the structure, this type of structure can be worse for black because the bishop on an open board could be stronger than the knight. But we can organize it slightly better. We can do it perhaps already with the pawn on D4 so that the bishop doesn't land on this diagonal so easily. Seems like this is entirely playable. My initial reaction of this being dangerous perhaps has been an overreaction.
An overreaction.
And you can't play the
Which move?
the other. I'm just thinking about maybe going once the queen steps back.
You like
to-
Queen G3?
I'm thinking you have to protect the E5 pawn.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get a construction which is a little bit more harmonious
F5.
and flexible. So I'm thinking bishop. And then bishop E3,
Bishop to E3, yeah.
Knight C6.
knight C6, and unfortunately, I was thinking about
Gift me your pawn.
yeah.
You can include Rook D1,
Rook
but after
D1,
Rook
but I
D1,
wanted Rook A to D1. That
yeah,
was the whole point.
it's probably the best move in the position. But after Rook A D8, you're still
Question.
facing the same question here. Yeah.
Yeah, what are we? It's really unfortunate that Bishop H6. I mean, it's a slamming of the door. Queen G6 really just not only takes away the attack, it does so with gain of time.
And
Please.
what happens if White says, you know what, I'm happy to let you trade. I'm going to go H3.
This is
H3.
Right now, I think it might be the best option White has, actually. I like this move very much.
Whoa.
No.
In the current
position.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, my mind had already rejected what
I mean,
we had just
my
seen.
Spidey sense just is like this engine grass where, the thing goes shooting through.
Sorry about that, yes. Please forgive me.
Yeah. You step on those elevators and it's like 2,000 kilos maximum, and then H2, H3. Okay.
Yeah. So I have a sneaky plan. So the whole point is, if you were to capture,
Let me
trade the
fall for
queens,
it. Yeah.
H takes.
Okay.
Which I think we do, actually.
Once I start to resolve and protect the center,
Okay.
the target is the H7 point.
Well, that's a long line. Knight to D7. So I will attack your pawn. I'm trying to provoke you to play F4. The reason I want you to play F4 is I'm thinking that the knight might find a beautiful outpost on the E4 square. I like the F5 as an outpost, but because I put your pawn on G4, there's no outpost. So knight D7, in case you play F4,
I don't think White needs to be that worried about the knight on E4 here. I will play F4 quite happily.
Should I grab the open file though? Now I'm thinking I can even
Bishop
include
E3.
rook to
What about rook to D1?
Well, rook D1 looks
Rook
very
D1.
strong, actually, yeah.
What?
There's a pawn on
Rook
D5.
D1. Just a second. Rook to D1.
I'm getting very excited
Rook
here.
C2, rook D5, knight C5, rook D2.
And at this point, I'm expecting you to switch sides. Yes.
Yeah, I will. I dropped the pawn. Okay, so I guess it does mean that I have to play knight C5, and you want
Actually, it doesn't. But once again, the way the engine proposes to solve this problem is maybe not very intuitive. It goes rook A E8 after F4. No, knight D7 F4.
Knight D7 F4, rook A8, because now the engine wants to play F6.
No,
F4.
Yeah,
rook
F4.
A8.
It goes rook A E8, allows you to play rook D1.
Okay,
Goes F6 and then rook F7.
that's what I was asking.
Yeah, so we've included rook E8 to make sure that F6 cannot be met by 5 E6, of course. That's why the tempo was spent on that. And now after rook F7, you actually have to return this pawn, because the F knight F6 just doesn't look right.
Right.
So you go bishop D2,
Okay.
Fe5, rook E1. There is still some pressure left, but the engine suggests this is very, very holdable.
This is also the thing that is happening with modern chess, is that the engines are driving us deeper and deeper out of the openings into the middle games. And, there I think we saw Jan getting up and kind of strolling around. He plays very quickly to begin. What?
Not a move we considered at all.
No.
H2, H3 had my attention, but queen takes D7, and Jan quickly returning to the board to make the only move. Following the Mark Dvoretsky rule, play forced moves immediately. Queen takes D7, knight takes D7, and gaining a tempo against the against the E5 pawn?
It's the same position, but the pawn is on H2 instead of G4. So Levon is making the argument that in some variations it would maybe hang.
Right.
And we have actually seen one variation where it would hang.
Where it did.
So maybe. I still feel like this is...
well, this feels toothless, truthful.
Yeah, not the way I would have gone, but the position remains, for how seemingly dry it is. There is a lot of potential intricacies here, because White obviously is now threatening rook D1, the pawn on D5 is vulnerable.
Right.
And the ideal setup involves something like putting the bishop on E3, one rook to D1, one rook to C1. And if Black has done nothing by that point, you will have pressure.
And I won't do nothing. I will play what the engine liked. Rook E8, rook D1, F6, rook takes D5, rook takes F7. I agree, the pawn is not hanging on G4 anymore.
It still doesn't take. It says... Yeah, it says the very, very same position is actually a bit better here compared to...
From the pawn is on H2, not on G4.
And you can understand why, because very often I think in particular, once again, let's compare.
Yeah.
If you go H3 and then you aim for the exact same endgame, just to show off yours, the very little details and differences which top grandmasters have to contend with. In this position,
Yes.
the engine actually just says, don't want this pawn. What I do want is to get rid of the active rook on g5. And your structure on the king side is so broken up that I will always have counterplay against it. It doesn't really give white any significant advantage at all.
Wow.
Imagine the same endgame with the pawn on h2.
Okay.
It might still be holdable because the blockading knight on e6 will be very, very strong. But your winning chances increase, I think, dramatically if you're allowed to make the move g4, h2 here.
Gotcha.
So this would be the comparison. Black isn't obliged to do exactly that. You can play just sort of very simple chess, knight c5, bishop e3, rook a d8, let's say. Rook a d1, you make a move. f6 is playable, rook e8 is playable. You don't have to go for these very concrete variations where you actually give up material to achieve your aims.
Because we reached a position, I think, that's very salient to the entire discussion. If I play f7, f5 here, because my dream as black is to go knight e6, and I've got this great blockading knight.
Yeah, we're taking either en passant or the knight. I'm never allowing you to play
never
knight
heard, no,
e6.
yeah.
One thing that doesn't happen here is we pass and we allow you to put the knight on d6.
Exactly. So en passant, and how does the evaluation here, Peter?
Unsurprisingly, in an endgame with equal material, three
0,
pieces left.
0.
Yeah, around 0-0.
And bishop takes c5 with the protected pass pawn in the middle of the board. Same story.
Should
0,
still
0,
be
0s?
holdable, but you have this rook lift towards, let's say, a3, a5, like something like this.
Right.
It gives you maybe a little bit of pressure. But
Okay.
if you are to pick a side here, it's probably
You
white.
want to be white, yeah.
But should still be around equal.
Yeah, no, I
Fantastic
also
stuff.
had one question to ask. So instead of playing rook to d1, what happens if you were to go bishop to d4 and blockade? And my whole idea is that if you were to go knight e6,
Right.
I just go rook d1, and I wanted to ask about this particular rook and pawn endgame. If you were to go knight takes bishop, which I
It feels
I don't think we do it immediately. I think we at least...
I'll play f6.
Yes.
You'll take on f6. I'll take on d4. You'll take on
Yeah.
d4. I take on f6. And this rook ending really feels evenish.
It's
don't know,
once
rook
again
c1.
a bit better for white for sure.
Still?
We play g3, we bring the king over to f3. But against good defenders, I think you enjoy much the better of it. You are clearly the side pressing. But out of the 10 games starting from this position between two players of this caliber, I guess the vast majority will be drawn.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
Well,
very
thank you for
tense
that.
game there. And
Absolutely.
we've just had some news that the Richard Rapport game against Alireza Firouzja is getting very interesting. So we left it when...
After the move knight b6.
Exactly, when
Bishop
Alireza
d3.
had deployed that novelty.
Bishop d3, as Peter wanted. d65, a move we didn't look at. Our focus had really kind of been on the move bishop e6, maybe even with queen e8 ideas, to maybe even with a5 ideas. But d5 was his choice. h4, Richie's playing all the correct moves. And Alireza says, do your worst. Go for your knight g5 business. Shall we do it? Shall we have a look, Jovi?
Obviously, we have to dive into this one.
Knight
to
g5.
g5.
Gift me the pawn on h7. So I'm assuming we want to avoid g6.
Yeah, we pretty much
you want to play
never
G6?
playing g6 here.
No.
That gives me, if you play g6, I mean, you're giving me such a marvelous target. I wouldn't be shocked that knight takes h7 and h takes g6 is a winning threat. So I don't assume it's g6.
No, it's pretty much always h6, I think.
h6.
Yeah.
h6. And presumably you'd leave that knight on g5. No retreat.
In Frank Marshall style, leaving it there. I was actually just having a conversation with myself that went knight h7, bishop takes h6.
I think
And
knight
I
h7...
didn't believe myself.
I think the issue probably is knight h7, c4.
c4, right? And then after
Right.
knight takes rook, you've got pawn takes bishop.
Exactly.
That
I
little
was
fella
so-
on f8 is trapped.
I was so happy with myself that I won an exchange until I realized, as you just said, the knight on f8 is not coming out. So no knight h7s, no bishop h7 checks.
Well, you can play it. I don't know what it does. Just in more general terms, it's very interesting to me to
I'm trying to get you to take my knight, guys.
yeah, now
Will you do me the solid and take my knight?
no, but
Hang on. You're threatening quite
very,
a nasty.
very clever
Yeah.
move, yeah.
So, for instance, okay, say black makes like a duff move, like a5 or something.
Okay, a duff. Okay.
Is it not?
A duffer? Duffer? Yeah, I guess
I
so.
don't know. Maybe I've been watching too many Simpsons.
It's
Duff
okay,
here.
it's okay.
Rubbish move.
Then-
That's very British. Rubbish.
Rubbish?
Yeah.
I wanted to play
Yeah,
bishop
bishop
G8.
G8. We have to show that.
And, you can take one minor piece at a time, but because the H7 square is covered twice, then you'd have to end up playing a move like F5 or G6, a move you didn't want to play. Bishop H7, is it ridiculous?
This variation in particular is bringing me to the point I was failing to articulate before we went on for that rabbit hunt. Alireza is basically playing this line as it's supposed to be played,
Right.
but with a knight on b6 instead of f6.
F6.
Which would have rendered all of your play completely impossible.
There's no
H7 is
checkmates on
covered.
H7.
So, a fantastic risk-taking, in my opinion. This is a very, very new and a very sharp approach. And I'm a little bit struggling to articulate to myself. I can see why the knight on b6 is worse than the knight on f6. Why is it better? Probably something to do with knight a4, queen b6. That's the only explanation I have.
Exactly.
Because otherwise, you would really much rather have it helping to defend your king, because there will be threats. They will come reasonably quickly. These lines are quite sharp, and you never have a particularly easy time of it here with black. So very, very interesting concept here by Alireza, because we're missing a very, very big defensive piece for currently very unclear payoff.
I'm forcibly reminded of Wilhelm Steinmetz's idea, his science-based ideas were that when you have too many pieces defending your king, they're not active enough. And so you try to have the minimal number of defenders so that you could play moves like knight a4 and queen b6, Peter. And if the knight wasn't needed on f6, then it was misplaced. I mean, it's quite the argument, because I'm looking at knight g5. Again, Richie's playing all of these moves. And, whether you're playing g4 or whether you're playing something, it does feel like you're giving me a free shot at the king
Absolutely.
side, right?
Can I ask
Joey.
something?
Yes.
I'm assuming, we've all assumed that knight b6 is like some hot
Offside?
novelty.
Yeah.
Could it be he just simply forgot?
No.
No.
Not this early stage.
No, that's
First of
that's
all,
too
not this
early.
early, and secondly, you never play a move like this quickly. If you're suddenly unsure of what your plan is, I don't think Alireza is the type of a guy who bluffs just a completely random new move.
Right. Okay, we've reached that time in the round where we check in with our friends at Sinquefield Cup. Before we're going to do that, we're going to take a quick look at the standings.
Yeah, well, let's remind ourselves
results.
of the standings after round 2. So after 8 draws, well, that means that there is nothing to separate our 9 players. And there we can see everyone is on 1 point, barring Richard Rapport, who sadly could not play his game against Jan-Krzysztof Duda after Jan-Krzysztof Duda was unwell. And remember, Jan-Krzysztof has now withdrawn after the second round.
It just means that all the players will be getting buys, so we will have 4 games to play per round instead of the 5 that we had expected and trained ourselves for.
Yes, and
I was trying to get a smile.
and then
there.
anyone wondering why Anish Giri only has half a point, that's because his game against Jan-Krzysztof Duda in the first round has been nullified. It's been voided.
Exactly. Okay, now we're ready. We have reached that stage of our broadcast where time to check in with our friends at QBoutique, STL.com, and see what they have for us. This one is this year's Sinquefield Cup can keep you warm for years to come with this amazingly comfortable jacket, and it really is very, very comfy. I see the players just kind of zipped in. Features an embroidery 2023 Sinquefield Cup logo on the left breast, the St. Louis Chess Club logo on the back of the neck, and the 2023 Grand Chess Tour logo on the right sleeve. The jacket is in stock for both men's and women's styles. And I'm telling you, the holiday discount is ridiculous. You're getting a 20% off, and you could do all your chess shopping needs at QBoutique.
It's
STL.com.
It's a limited offer, so hurry now to the webpage.
I like the way
get yourself
Firouzja said
jumper.
that he went into the chess shop, and he said it was great to be in a shop that was dedicated to chess items, and you can spend a lot of money too.
Absolutely. And we are going to take a quick break, but during the break we have a very nice feature on the community outreach program, so enjoy that and see you in a few minutes.
So today's Community Day. All the participants of the U.S. Championship are going to schools around St. Louis and, teaching kids openings, endgames, tactics, doing some fun stuff like hand and brain, some simuls, and we just finished our first class and it was really fun.
I see kids taking the skills that they're learning in chess, whether that be critical thinking, decision-making skills, planning skills, and I see them applying that throughout the rest of their school day, whether it's in classes or sports or even just how they interact with one another and with their teachers.
I play with my auntie, my mom, my sisters. Sometimes on the weekends, like we go to the park and we play. They be begging me to teach them. I show them new stuff, like new openings. I show them that. And so I'm trying to see them get better and try to beat me.
What I like about chess is just trying to have fun and learn new things, and maybe I'll get more into it and it'll maybe be my full career.
I heard that if you play chess, you make better decisions in life, so I always want to make better decisions in life.
I can tell you that they've engaged more in critical thinking. They are looking analytically at moves and trying to think ahead.
I like the complexity of chess, how you have to think about every single move you make. Like every move you make, whether it's gonna put your king in check, whether it's gonna put your anything in danger, whether it's just a move that you make, everything counts in the long run. I like how it makes me use my critical thinking, makes me look at the whole board.
I think it's teaching them to be persistent. We have a lot of students who it takes them, it may take a few weeks or even months in chess club to master a particular strategy or skill. And what I think that teaches kids is even if they don't get it the first time around, or even if it's difficult the first time around, it's worth sticking to it.
Well, one thing's for certain, without the St. Louis Chess Club, we would not have chess instructors, because I don't know if you all know this, but there is a critical shortage of teachers and educators, and especially those in areas that are not core content area. And because of the St. Louis Chess Club collaboration, we have people who come in here working with students who want to work with them. Today, with the experience, the Grandmaster Community Outreach Day, I came up and I'm like, well, what's a Grandmaster? And they're like, oh, you don't know what a Grandmaster is? And they were able to explain that. And they recognize the importance and the seriousness. I mean, it's a sport, it's a profession. And so they're able to see things outside of the sports that we typically promote in school.
It makes me feel good because learning stuff like this will help me build my problem solving skills, help me build strategy, and helping my brain.
Hello, I'm Women's Grandmaster Begim Tokhorjanova. I will be creating content for Grand Chess Tour. Follow us on social media and catch more behind the scenes content.
The St. Louis Chess Club is the premier chess facility in the United States. We bring the educational benefits of chess to thousands of students across the St. Louis area. We also promote chess at the highest levels, hosting all levels of the U.S. championships as well as high-profile tournaments that attract the world's best players. Become a member and enjoy perks such as free classes and lectures, weekly tournaments, and so much more. Visit stlouischessclub.org to claim your membership today.
Yeah, it's amazing what the club has done for chess in general because, I mean, it's already been 15 years and they've done countless national championships, tournaments for juniors, helping around schools, and they've just grown the game so much across the United States.
I think if I look at my own career and I look at American chess in general, we're in a much better place than we were 15 years ago. And so the contributions have been immense. And of course, it's all thanks to Dr. Gini Sinquefield and Rex Sinquefield.
I would say that St. Louis Chess Club is like a rock in the ocean of chess. And we know that it's there. It is there, it will be there. I think it sends a hope that the game of chess will always stay afloat. By the mere fact of its existence, I think it sends positive waves across the globe.
The World Chess Hall of Fame, located in the heart of St. Louis's historic Central West End. Want to know why chess has intrigued people around the world for nearly 1,500 years? Stop by and learn about the impact of chess from our 3 floors showcasing the art, culture, and history of the game. The World Chess Hall of Fame has something for everyone to enjoy. For more information on current exhibits, please visit worldchesshof.org. St. Louis, the chess capital of the United States. It also plays host to an award-winning shop dedicated to chess merchandise, all-occasion gifts, and plenty more. At Q Boutique, you can shop both in-store and online. From quirky greeting cards to luxury chess sets, there is something for everyone at Q Boutique. Enjoy a shopping experience like no other. Make sure to check out QBoutiqueSTL.com for a wide variety of gifts for everyone to enjoy.
The St. Louis Chess Club Scholastic Program brings the educational value of chess to kids in schools across the St. Louis area. Active in over 100 schools throughout the St. Louis City and County, the St. Louis Chess Club has been able to reach over 85,000 students in both in-school and after-school programs. We view chess as a valuable educational tool. Learn more about our scholastic programming by visiting stlouischessclub.org/education.
Hello, I'm Women's Grandmaster Riyam Tokhjanova. I will take you behind the scenes of the Grand Chess Tour. Follow us on social media and don't miss out on players' interviews and more content from the playing hall.
The St. Louis Chess Club is the premier chess facility in the United States and is among the best in the world. Thanks to co-founders Dr. Gini Sinquefield and Rex Sinquefield, the St. Louis Chess Club is a non-profit organization committed to promoting the game of chess locally and internationally. We bring the educational benefits of chess to thousands of students across the St. Louis area, promoting cognitive development, critical thinking, concentration, and analytical skills. The St. Louis Chess Club welcomes chess lovers of any age and skill level to come and enjoy the game of chess. We also promote chess at the highest levels, hosting all levels of the U.S. championships and the American Cup, as well as high-profile tournaments that attract the world's best players, including the prestigious Sinquefield Cup, Cairns Cup, and many more. All tournaments can be streamed via our YouTube and Twitch channels that also include over 2,000 chess lectures for anyone to enjoy. Become a member and enjoy perks such as free classes and lectures, weekly tournaments, merchandise discounts, and so much more. Visit stlouischessclub.org to claim your membership today.
The World Chess Hall of Fame, located in the heart of St. Louis's historic Central West End. Want to know why chess has intrigued people around the world for nearly 1,500 years? Stop by and learn about the impact of chess from our 3 floors showcasing the art, culture, and history of the game. Landmarked by the world's largest chess piece sitting outside our front door, the World Chess Hall of Fame has something for everyone to enjoy, including various exhibitions, monthly concerts, and much more. Whether you are a beginner or a professional, there is something for everyone to learn here at the World Chess Hall of Fame. Enjoy free admission to our rotating exhibitions in our galleries and sign up for chess events, family-friendly programming, and art classes. And don't forget to stop by our award-winning gift shop, Q Boutique, and shop a wide selection of chess-related merchandise. For more information on current exhibits, please visit worldchesshof.org. St. Louis, the chess capital of the United States, boasts the world-class St. Louis Chess Club and the World Chess Hall of Fame. It also plays host to an award-winning shop dedicated to chess merchandise, all-occasion gifts, and plenty more. At Q Boutique, you can shop both in-store and online for chess merchandise, autograph collectibles, chess campus souvenirs, and much, much more. From quirky greeting cards to luxury chess sets, there is something for everyone at Q Boutique. And all purchases go right to benefiting new exhibitions and programs at the World Chess Hall of Fame, dedicated to exploring chess and its immense impact on art and culture. Located on the first floor of the World Chess Hall of Fame, enjoy a shopping experience like no other and become everyone's favorite gift giver. If you can shop in store, make sure to check out QBoutiqueSTL.com for a wide variety of gifts for everyone to enjoy.
Welcome back to our coverage of round 3 in the Sinquefield Cup. And it's been an exciting start to round 3.
We've got
a lot
some games on the
of
board.
tension on the board. And let's remind ourselves, especially for those viewers who have just tuned in, of the standings after round 2. And, well, there we see it. There's not that much that separates anyone. No one has yet won a game.
Exactly.
And you can see Fabiano Caruana and a whole list of people there on 1 point. And let's remind ourselves of the pairings. And there you do see that the game between Leinier Dominguez and Jan-Krzysztof Duda has been grayed out. And that is because, unfortunately, Jan-Krzysztof Duda has had, due to ill health, to withdraw from the event.
And in those 4 pairings, we see a very nice one between MDL and Fabi. And let's just jump to that. That was a Zaitsev. And when we left it, we were very curious as to which line of the Zaitsev Maxime might choose. The old thing had always been that A2, A4 was the most challenging. A2, A3, have it in mind that Alexander Belyavsky was one of the first to come up with this idea of just giving the bishop an extra square on the A2 square. Peter,
I feel like
away.
MBL actually played this against me at least once, maybe even twice, but the games didn't go the way of this game. A3, H6 is almost always required. There are some very dangerous traps you can fall into if you postpone this for too long and allow knight G5 in a favorable variation. In particular,
can we show the one trap?
Yeah.
So say, for instance, the knight goes to D7.
Okay.
D7.
Let's say knight BD2.
Okay. Oh no, I was just
No,
thinking knight.
you want to go bishop F7?
Here it's a different one. There is a reasonably well-known position like this where if you play knight B8, you pretty much have, as you can see, the immediate bottoming out of the engine. And some very, very high-level games have been lost by this line. This is a very, very well-known trap where we take on F7, and black is so ill-equipped to deal with the eventual attack on F7. You can take on D1, and perhaps you would think, I could get the pawn to C4, and this will force white to cash in the chips on F7. No, C5, white plays bishop E6, maintaining the bishop on the diagonal.
Nice.
And now the best play that black has is to play knight C6 and knight D8, after which you will have to defend what frankly is
a losing ending.
A losing endgame after something like bishop b3. You have to run away with the rook, and then white will protect the pawn on e4 and will eventually convert. There have been grandmaster games, and more than one, that have been lost this way.
Nice.
So this is why you do want to play h6 sooner rather than later, and knight bg2, bishop f8 played. And I think against me, MVL was playing d5 in all of these positions, but today he went for a very, very slow build-up. This idea of a3 bishop c2, it exists. And now we are at a crossroads, because very often the one bad piece that black has in the Zaitsev, if white doesn't do something very immediate in the center, is this knight on c6, which is really sort of in the way of your own counterplay. And we also have to, well, not have to, but we would like to continue preventing the knight from landing on g3.
Okay.
So black plays knight b8 here, with the same idea of meeting knight f1 with e takes d4, and the pawn on d4 is hanging.
Right.
So after knight b8, MVL played b3, knight b7, bishop b2. This, I would say, this was somewhat topical around 1985, and not really since, you know. And
those were the good old days. Come on.
Yeah, and black has all the time in the world to finish development. Fabi played g6. Now white played bishop d3 and a4. And this is what I wanted to say. This is an intersection of Zaitsev and the Breyer variation, where black plays knight b8 on move 9. And after a4 here, Fabi did something that I have not really seen very often, but it's a very good reaction specifically here. This whole plan of playing a4 and bishop d3 as early as possible is aimed squarely at trying to provoke c7, c6. The pawn on b5 is hanging. You do not want to be losing it for nothing.
Clear.
And if you play c6, then white's plan, and this is sort of a classical Breyer. I think this position actually transposes to the absolutely mainline Breyers. The bishop on b7 now looks kind of sad.
Right.
Pushing c6, c5 will be difficult. White plays queen c2. And eventually, the plan here would be to play c3, c4 and start expanding in the center. And these positions often become quite annoying for black. They're not really bad, but they're definitely preferable for white. Instead, Fabi just says, I have a pawn break in the center. What is currently preventing me from this pawn break in the center is the fact that my pawn is hanging.
Right.
I will just spoil my structure by playing b takes a4. Positionally, this is of course not a move you would like to make, leaving yourself with this straggler on a6. But I will immediately blow everything up in the center with d6, d5. And very likely there will be mass simplifications now, because this type of a four-pawn formation in the center results normally in the entirety of the pawns here getting annihilated.
I have seen the move d4 takes e5 being played by MVL, and we would anticipate...
We are probably taking on e4, because the recapture on e5 would allow white to... hang on a second, yeah, knight e5, knight e5, rook e5. c4 is playable, f4 is also playable, I think, to a lesser extent, but c4 in particular is very annoying here. First provoking d4, and now we can even play c4, c5 to make sure that black cannot support it with their own pawn.
Also knight f3.
This is a weakness, and yeah, this is not great. You really don't want that.
Actually, this position has been reached before between Alireza Firouzja and Liam Lequang, and there the knight takes.
Knight takes e4.
Knight takes e4, and this also, I guess, explains why Fabi is playing this very confidently. This is move 20 after d6, d5, and normally this is a sideline. Fabi obviously is extremely well booked up, but honestly this plan with a3 followed by b3, this is very slow, and it is very much a sideline. So he would find all the same moves, but he would spend more time doing it.
Right.
Only spending 50 minutes to get here, I think, implies that he's seen this before.
So let me just update my board. But it looks to me like the position's just blowed up. D takes e5, knight takes e4. How would the variation continue, Jovi? Knight takes e4, d takes e4, bishop takes e4?
Yeah, let me just pull up that game. And
you mentioned it was Firouzja.
Yeah, it was Firouzja against Liam Le. And yeah, so there were some trades in the middle of the board. Knight takes knight.
Yes.
And
d5 takes e4.
Hang on, let me...
You take on e4 here with the bishop.
Yes.
And after rook a takes e4, you have this very standard tactic for all of these Spanish positions. You can still take on e5 with the knight because you have an intermediary check on f3.
That's exactly what happened.
Intermediate.
Listen to him. He knows everything.
Have you been studying the games of Alireza? Knight takes e5, and do we take on d8? And you have the intermezzo. So if we take on d8, as you said, we take on b3 with a check first. We don't have to recapture.
Yeah, we go knight of 3 gf, and then we take with the rook on e8, so that not to blunder it.
Very cleverly. And at the end of the day, we do have the split pawns, but Okay.
Probably a draw, but I would say a more pleasant one for black.
And yeah, this looks absolutely fine. And I do believe we have knight. We just saw there on our screens, knight takes e4.
It will actually be difficult for them to avoid getting to the position after knight takes e5. Specifically after knight takes e5, white has options. The game doesn't need to end an immediate draw in that position, but
we could
black will
like
be
queen e2.
Yeah, queen e2 or knight d2, perhaps trying to preserve some pieces on the board. But
the players are racing. And what happened? What was the result of that particular game that you were mentioning between Liam and?
Unsurprisingly, it was a draw. But
a halving of the point.
It was a sharing of the point, and well,
and we do have bishop takes e4.
What happened there is that white successfully managed to avoid knight takes f3 by simply playing knight takes e5 at the end of all the trades. So after knight takes pawn, knight takes knight.
Knight takes e5, and I'm assuming queen takes d1 was the answer to knight takes e5.
And it's where the vacuum cleaner comes onto the board, removes all the pieces, and...
Okay.
Rook e5 here. Because
rook e5 and rook c4, Peter?
Yeah, rook b5, I guess.
Rook b5. That's annoying.
Yeah, in this very endgame.
Okay. Well, this game sure does look like a fizzle if they play right straight into an ending. I want to go to the game of Richie and Firouzja for a moment.
Something very interesting happened there.
Exactly, very much so. So it seemed to us that Richie was playing all of these very nice attacking moves, h4, knight g5, bishop d3, got the position with h7, h6 eventually. By the way, the times are 42 minutes for Richie, 107 for Alireza, and a move bit of a surprise.
I don't think
c4, c5.
I don't think it would have been in my top 10. In particular, as is often the phenomenon here, is if somebody shows you this position, let's say a friend of yours who is also a chess player, sends you this position and says, guess the move.
Right.
This immediately rules out all the natural moves.
Right, can be one.
In that context, I think maybe I would have guessed it in the top 10.
Right.
But if I were to start considering from scratch without knowing that I'm looking for something that I'm not expecting, I don't know if I would settle on this. Because Richie, enough spoiling, we should show what he played.
Right.
He played the move c3, c4 here, which is a pawn sacrifice, and also solves very confidently for black the problem of what to do with the knight on b6, and also how to get rid of the bishop on d3, which seems like a very important attacking piece.
Right.
Because white pretty much is obliged to take on c4. And I guess the plan is to play queen e3, which does provoke a slightly awkward-looking move, queen e8. But now that there is no light-squared bishop on the board, I think black will be more confident in facing the attack. One thing I wanted to mention, there's this incredibly famous Alekhine game, which I'm forcefully reminded of, but we don't have enough pieces on good bishop. I'm sorry. That is a bit of a problem.
But
this just wins on the spot. I wanted to show this very typical situation, like takes, we go f5. And there's this incredibly famous Alekhine game which reached this kind of a position, and Alekhine won it by playing g6 and then creating unstoppable threats on the h-file. Right. But currently, we only have one rook on the h-file. So, like, if we could play something like, if we had a king on b1 here and could play like rook d1, h5 here, that actually would be made.
Right.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's not how anything works.
But the position is so dangerous for black, because even this position, you know, I'm looking at moves like rook d to e1.
Absolutely.
Asking questions of the bishop.
Absolutely. And you have to be... One thing I will say, though, is that there is this offloading available, which I already blundered once.
But then you go pawn takes. I mean, how...
It still
Bishops of opposite color, Jovi. Didn't round one teach you something?
I think the most important factor in this position is the fact that the h3 square is covered. Because you cannot create immediate direct threats here. If you take on g5, you might actually even maybe... I mean, you're not much worse, but you're also not better. If once again, if in this position we already could create a mating threat, we would be very much in business. But because h3 is covered by the bishop on c8, we are probably completely fine as black. So seems like there is no real way for white
Reputation.
to break through. I wonder how much time it has taken Ricci to settle on c4. It's an interesting option, honestly. It probably will not produce a big advantage for him, but it's a very original option.
I utterly agree about c4 being original. It would not, like you, Peter, been on my top list. But without c3, c4, and like you said, you know, your friend just asked you, what am I supposed to do in this position? What would you have recommended to your friend?
Something like
G4.
Guess, yeah.
What was an engine's top choice? Was it
G4 is good, yeah. G4, Queen
Right.
E3 is another move that it suggests
Queen
here.
E3.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to mention here, which I think is a good way to explain how Ricci arrived at the move c4.
Right.
I think if you give Black the move here, Black is very, very interested in the idea of playing c4 themselves.
Okay.
Because on h7 it probably will get stuck, and if you successfully remove the bishop from this diagonal, let's say
No
we play
checkmates.
king b1, c4, let's say something bishop b2.
Right.
Suddenly all of the ideas of knight a4, queen b6 gain in strength, rook e8, bishop f6, all of these moves. Once this bishop is on e2 and not on this diagonal, there's pretty much no attack on the king side anymore, and Black has a much freer reign to start something on the other side of the board. So I think it was prompted by the realization that something needs to be done about the idea of c5, c4. And actually, weirdly, I think g4 is a prophylactic move, not an attacking move. The point being that after c4 we will do this. And we have an additional square for this
For your
piece.
protection.
We have an additional square for this piece, which is a huge big deal. We don't have to put it on a passive square. And also, if it gets traded, there is a g-file open for our pieces.
Yeah.
So this is, I think,
why g4?
Yeah, would be a good explanation for why g4 is playable. And in fact, computer replays with f7, f5. And I would say, had Richard known
that f5 was required,
that g4, f5 might be required, he probably would have gone for this position. Because honestly, at first glance, it looks like this cannot possibly be playable for Black.
You're being helping.
Yeah,
You're being
apparently,
helpful.
it's completely playable for Black, and in fact, White might even need to make precise moves here. But you know, for somebody who does not have access to the engine evaluation, this looks incredibly attractive, I think, because
And is
Confounding, Jovi. Just
is there
amazing, that
any
sequence.
kind of, because I'm just trying to make sense of the c4 idea.
Okay, so
And
take g4.
because that was played.
Yes.
And I'm thinking after knight takes pawn.
c4.
Is there any currency in I was thinking bishop h7 check. And just saying
King h8.
king h8 and then queen to d3, your idea. And I know
it would be good, but we're kind of
and then
getting...
b3, and then I just kind of wanted to check this one out.
There is unfortunately a very direct tactical refutation for it.
F4
because
is hanging.
Everything starts
Everything
collapsing.
is happening, okay.
I was wondering, I mean, queen f6 wins on the spot. I wanted to ask myself the question whether this is the only move that wins, and I can see that knight b2 also wins, but it's
Because of queen
but it's
f6.
basically the same move.
Yes.
So perhaps apart from this idea of queen f6, this maybe would have worked, because as we've discovered, bishop g8 is a massive threat. You can maybe make an argument that even the g5 pawn is hanging in some variations. The knight is hanging. I mean, you don't really dream of playing b takes c4, because maybe it opens up your own queen side. But yeah, there's a very, very specific direct refutation for it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peter. We're going to jump to the game between Levon and
that one is not
Nepo,
long for the
because
world, yeah.
I don't think...
That game is going to continue for too long because
exactly. When we left it,
look at
we saw the move queen takes d7, a bit of a surprise for us, right? We recall that we were looking at h3 and those endings, but queen takes, and the play went
Jan actually
fast.
found a very, very direct way to try and simplify, which wasn't immediately obvious to me that this works, but I guess Levon couldn't find anything.
So he traded off the minor piece and played king to rook to d2. That is, I like
nifty
that word.
footwork.
Yeah, right. A little cheeky little move. Rook to d2, takes. Rook to d1, rook to e8, and these guys are so accurate, and that's what it's been for the first two rounds. I mean, there's not a smidge of an advantage, and up to the point where rook d2 was played, maybe.
There's one specific...
Levon was hopeful.
There's one specific point where he could have continued, but the evaluation continues dropping, so we do not count this as any kind of a miss. It would have kept the game going, though, specifically in the position after f5 was replied to with d5, d4.
Right.
There was the option of playing bishop h6.
Maintaining the minor pieces.
Yeah, maintaining the minor pieces, also putting the bishop on a very, very obviously good square.
Right.
I'm pretty sure Jan was intending to play knight g7 to challenge the white center. And the engine makes this very clever little move, rook d1, d2. In order to be able to give a check. In order to be able to give a check from g2 if black actually goes after the f5 pawn. That would be a mistake. But against instead of gf5, gf5, here rook g2 followed by bishop g5 just wins on the spot. This cannot be played at all.
This is a nice one. Yeah. So you can't take on f5, but rook to d2.
Yeah, rook d2, engine goes rook d5 and says, nothing really has been lost.
It looks like the players are actually repeating the current position.
Jan is smirking a bit because he could play king f6 here and pretend he is a bit better, but nobody really does that.
No.
Nobody really does that.
And you don't want to disabuse
Rook d2 played.
A professional.
And the repetition is incoming.
The draw virus is amongst us as they can't get away from this. It had certain moments, but it never really came to anything even the least bit critical, Peter.
It seems like a very well played game. There were some decisions in the opening you could question. Honestly, I feel that Jan tried to equalize, sort of hardcore equalize specifically, like somewhere here.
Bishop a6.
The engine suggests that you can just play something like this.
Precisely.
Common wisdom is that if you play cd5, e5 this early, with the bishop still stuck on c1, black really isn't supposed to be any worse at all, so why not just play a game of chess? Whereas b6, bishop a6, it's a solid positional idea, leaving white with obviously the inferior of the two bishops.
Right.
But you spend a lot of time on it. You have to then put the knight back on b8, as we've seen in the game. So perhaps Jan played for a simpler way to equalize instead of playing for a more complex position with all the pieces on the board. But once we get here, it seems like an incredibly well-played game, just leading to equality.
Yeah, the accuracy of the players continue to amaze. I mean, even, Jovi, you weren't here for the Rapid and Blitz, but even some of those Blitz games could easily be disguised themselves as classical games because they played just so incredibly well. Just going again, I just wanted to see if anything really had happened between MVL and Fabi, and the players have gone right down that whole ending with knight takes e5, and we've been looking at knight takes e5 ourselves, and that move rook b5, what Peter showed, that was really annoying. Excuse me, this was this position with knight takes e5. We didn't really finish our thought, but it was I thought for just a moment, like I had played this move rook c4, and I thought, okay, if I can just get you to play some defensive move, I don't care, rook e7 or rook c8, I might have a bit of an edge thanks to my superior structure. But it was this move, rook b5.
Rook b5, I think, is a very good reminder for white that the move you actually want to make is the move c3, c2.
Yes. Yes.
This is the one you want.
Right. You put the bishop
but unfortunately,
back on e3 and play c3, c2.
Yes. Not allowed.
Not allowed.
Denied.
Denied.
And if you have to play b4, well, then that's just going to get undermined by a5.
Exactly. That was... And the timing is just perfect for Fabi. And we're thinking even Stevens in this game. We just saw the game of that was drawn between Nepo. And let's jump to the game of Anish, Giri, and Wesley So for a moment. When we left it at these parts, and we didn't see the move b3, but b3 was as actually in the theoretical database. Peter, take it away, b3.
Yeah. So after rook e1, if we go back to here, we were discussing direct ideas of playing d4, but Anish did end up playing rook e1. Queen e6 is a very logical move, because he also very often will want to bring that bishop back, so that opens the rook e8, bishop f8 plans, and also stops d4 for the time being, because the knight will hang. So b3, b5, chasing it away, and now the announced dropping back of the bishop is prepared. This is normally a very, very strong piece. White generally is very happy when you can establish this knight on the f5 square. But there's really no support in terms of any attacking possibilities on the king side, so shuffling will continue until morale improves, as is well known. And we reach this position where the move g7, g6 is really the first decision Wesley has taken, which surprised me because I thought we don't really need to react to this knight on f5. I don't quite understand why we're softening our own structure. And the solutions that the engine offered, one thing to mention, we have just with black played f7, f6, leaving the pawn on b5 unprised, because if you take, I will be able with either rook b8 or rook a5 to win it back immediately. But after queen c2, perhaps c takes b5 was already a bit of a threat. And the engine suggests that you can reply to it in both of the slightly anti-positional ways. Both b5, b4 and b takes c4 are playable, connected with a very specific idea. If white, let's say, recaptures with a b pawn, what we want to do is we want to land this knight on c6 and then on d4, or actually even b4 in some positions, if there's still a backward pawn on d3 for us to play against. And the engine is entirely unconcerned here with black. There's nothing much going on the king side. If the center is entirely closed, you can maybe sometimes, there's, you know, the old classics where people
G4,
play king
G5,
h1, they play rook g1, and they launch this attack.
Right.
But once the knight lands on d4, you will not really feel like there's nothing going on elsewhere.
Right.
So that seemed completely fine. And in fact, even b5, b4 with the intention of playing knight b8, knight c6 also seems okay. You probably don't want to start thinking about giving up the a file, but it's, in a cold light of day, it seems to be completely playable. Not that g6 is a bad move, but I was a bit surprised about allowing knight h6 check, because this gives white a bit of a foothold.
Can you not do the same plan, though? You know, once you move the king?
I think you can, yeah, but I just didn't feel like I needed to compromise.
Yeah.
I view the move g6 as a bit of a compromise on the king side, because there's now a target for some future play. It's very much in the future. There's really no way for white to attack the... Whoa.
Because I would feel very uncomfortable in this position with white, actually, because, you know, the knight on h6 isn't doing that much, and if you go knight to g4, well, they can always get kicked back with h5, and I love your plan of going, like, b4, knight b8, knight c6, yeah. and suddenly you feel like black has the one that's playing for everything.
Sorry to interrupt
and the sounds I was making there.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but the bishop.
Ooh. How did this happen? Let's rewind.
We actually just completely blundered rook takes e5. This is how it happened.
Oh.
But Maxime didn't. Maxime saw that this exists. A move that completely eluded my attention. This actually wins, you know, arguably wins some material, because black has to take bishop takes e5, otherwise rook takes e8 wins material. We take on d8. Rook takes d8, and we took on d5 with a rook, because if you take with the knight after f6, you get a much, much inferior version of what we're getting in the game.
Right.
Just to show why, you will have to play king f1 here, and the rook immediately attacks and wins the pawn on b3, which is really, really bad news for white. So rook e5, rook takes e5, knight takes e5, a check was given, and rook d2 played, the bishop came to a3. And
this was the rook versus the two light, rook and pawn versus two light pieces, but everybody's jumping for the pieces, Peter.
There is a very useful rule of thumb here you can use to assess these endgames, which is another, you know, little bit of wisdom I've acquired over the years that is not mine, but I feel very confident in sharing. This very same position, you add a rook to both white and black. White is pretty much close to winning.
Exactly.
Specifically, one rook against two light pieces is a much better situation for the rook.
Right.
Because you need a piece to compete for the control of the files, and a single rook can do things against two light pieces, in particular against bishop and knight. If this were the two bishops, white would be much, much better. But rook with bishop and knight, I think this is probably around equal, because the structure on the queen side is soft enough that black probably succeeds in getting a lot of stuff off the board on the queen side. And also you have to remember that even 3 against 3 on one side, rook and knight and bishop against rook is generally speaking a draw if there are no major weaknesses. And 2 against 2 is pretty much always a draw.
Right.
So if you imagine in this position, let's say black somehow loses the h6 pawn, but the entire queen side disappears, that is a draw.
Okay.
It will be played out.
Right.
You can occasionally lose if you misplay it, but it's a draw. So there is decent amount of safety there available to Fabi. But I'm very grateful for MVL for actually spotting rook takes e5 because we have a game on our hands.
Right.
It is a game, but the rule that I have is that when it's just a rook and a bishop and knight, the rook does very well in endgames because the rook is able to do something that the bishop and knight can't do. Traverse from one side to another in one swoop.
Sure. No question. Very, very powerful piece. The difference for me, though, Peter, is I agree with you. Swap off all 4 pawns on the queen side, easy draw, even if I lose the h6 or f7 pawn in the swapping. But in this particular case, with the pawns' weaknesses, c7 and a6, can't I play, for example, knight d3? With the very concrete
Rook
idea, if you play rook c2 or...
What about rook
It goes
a2?
rook d2, very
Yeah.
I was
specific.
thinking rook a2 and go a5, a4. Is that just too simplistic?
No,
So we probably want to put it on also fine. Yeah, where do you want to?
Yeah, bishop. I was trying the ideal setup, of course, was my bishop
And
coming
then
to
Bishop to
d4, yeah.
and
I wanted a5
Right.
just to...
Yeah, and again, if your pawns were on b7 and c7, I wouldn't even be discussing this
Well,
as a possibility.
we can trade one.
But
It
maybe
starts
keep-
liking it for white now.
Can you keep that on the board? Because I'd like to have that idea in my pocket. Maybe rook a3, or is it?
It's
you're gonna
actually
go knight
quite
c5?
instructive how the engine treats this.
Okay.
It very much keeps this in balance,
Right.
and it starts advancing on the king side, saying that if you lose,
We want to make sure that g2 is.
if you lose the
That's scary.
g2 pawn somewhere, you will be very unhappy.
Right.
And once this reaches a4, you can also start bringing your king in. And also, you constantly ask white to keep an eye on the queen side because losing b3 will also probably be lethal for white.
Yeah, not what
Seems
I
like
want.
this is still balanced, but it's a sharp endgame. It's very much a sharp game.
Let's interrupt our discussions and throw it to Anastasia with a special guest. Over to you, Anastasia.
Indeed, I have a special guest. I have Ian Nepomniachtchi, who just finished his game against Levon Aronian. The game finished in a draw, 3 draws so far. Jan, how is it going for you? The tournament.
Hard to say. So, like in the first round, it wasn't really a full game, and yesterday was like a long game, and yeah, with quite an unfortunate final moves. But today, I think I misplayed opening very, very badly, so I mixed up some ideas, and I think at some point I felt like it's not like a Thanksgiving day for me, it's like giveaway day. So like my position was like, at least optically going worse and worse, extremely, extremely fast. Yeah, so...
It didn't feel that way from outside. Can you explain exactly the moments when you thought the position was not good?
First of all, you can even play like this, like CD, ED, but this is not like anything quite as easily trying to achieve any advantage, just more like trying to deviate from some known lines. So it's like the similar position is in Nimzo than in bishop was on b4. Well, not such a big difference for black, so I can do the same, but what I did was I tried to play this line with bishop a6, which is, it makes sense, but I think the thing I mixed up a little, that there is a very similar position in bishop d2 a3 line, but then the bishop is on d2, d5 is not under attack. So the difference is like knight e6, knight e5, so here probably I should have played queen c8 or something anyway, like to make a response, a sensible move, like the queen goes to e6, very solid. Yeah, but okay, of course my idea was to play c5, but then knight c6, queen d7, let's say, takes here, and the pawn on d5 is hanging. So probably this was also not that bad, but if you take with the knight, right, unfortunately is not forced to capture on d5, so then I get some nice compensation. But instead just played for isolated pawn, like something, b3, knight to bishop b2, and looks like I'm simply not in time to deal with it, so it's like slightly worse for a very, very long term. So here, that's why I played bishop d6, but yeah, clearly I lost the trace. I thought like anyway the position is very solid, so probably it is. But after queen e2, I mean it's suddenly quite unpleasant to choose between like queen c8 and knight b8. Like both moves are not great. There would be a nice move knight c5, but unfortunately here knight c6, queen d7 takes and knight. Okay, knight retreats to a5 at least, or queen a6, so it doesn't work. So I'm pretty much forced to go. I mean, like queen c8 was also a move, but I think the problem is the same. Like e4 and my pieces are quite poorly coordinated. So okay, I have this knight c5 trick in this moment, but yeah, it's not. That doesn't look great either. So e4. Well, here I had a choice. Actually, I could also play like bishop e5. Maybe it would be. I mean, even more passive than what I got, but maybe slightly more solid because I'm not getting my weak pawn on d5. But I was somehow not too concerned, and I think I was wrong. So here, like knight d5 is principal, bishop e5, queen e4. So yeah, so c6 is probably the only move, because if I play, let's say, bishop d6 there is, I mean, I have very, very slight compensation here. So for example, if knight f6, queen f6, queen e8, knight c6, I think I'm doing more or less fine. Yeah. But the problem that he can go,
some knight b6.
Well, a lot of different moves. Yeah, also like knight b6, a lot of moves here works. Yeah, knight b6 as well. Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, but yeah, quite logical. So okay, when you play like knight e6, b8 and back, back and forth, it's not so good. So c6, this was pretty much forced. So here taking with the queen was quite principal, but then he takes rook d1, knight c6, rook d5, rook d8, takes and bishop f4. So this somehow I believe should be playable for black, but I mean still it's like without a pawn, so not so great. Maybe I called a draw here. I mean, most likely black draws this, but because of the active rook, yeah, like pawn on e5 is also a weakness. So, but I wasn't so sure, so I decided to play like cd5, queen g4. Well, queen g4, I'm not sure. He had so many nice moves here, like played positionally in different ways. Maybe queen e2 was the move also. But okay, queen g4 is principal, and here, well, I was choosing between queen c8 and queen d7. I'm not sure, so this leads to pretty much similar positions, like rook c2, takes, knight c6. But here he can just, I don't know, like play like f4 or maybe h3 or b3, like a lot of moves, and I'm not sure I'm getting full compensation as well, yeah, so I was also concerned, so I decided to play queen d7, but in fact this position is very dangerous. So we exchange it, f4. I'm not sure, so Lev suggested something like f6, e6, knight c5, f5, and then d4, and then slowly like play rook d8, rook d5, and then g6, which maybe makes sense, but was not obvious for me like at all, like letting this pawn on e6 survive, which probably will be there forever.
Looks dangerous also.
Yeah, so knight c5. Rook d1, maybe here I should have tried other rook to d8, but was not obvious to me at that point. So somehow I felt like after bishop e3, g6, if he goes g4, then there is some mess, and maybe I should be doing fine. I was way more concerned about some calm move like rook ac1, knight e6, let's say g3. And yeah, the type of position would hardly ever change, and he just slowly improves, like comes with his king to f3, then okay, h3, g4. So probably I should hold it with some precise play, but this is a very unpleasant endgame. Very unpleasant. So like even like play d4, bishop f2, rook ac8, like I don't know, king g2. I don't know, let's say f6, takes, king f7, king f3, and so on. So probably, yeah, like slowly white is trying to improve, but I mean, this is nothing but pleasant for black. But here, surprisingly, I have 5 d4. So here I thought, like, I mean, maybe it just lost after bishop h6, knight g7, f6, knight e6, rook c1. So because of like the back rank problem, so my king is basically trapped. But maybe it's not as bad as it seems. Yeah, like I play something like rook c8, and maybe I play g5 and d3. So okay, at least this didn't really depend on me already. Yeah? So I did everything I could to get into trouble, but the rest was pretty random, I would say. Yeah, and
just exchange everything.
Yeah, and here the only thing that after e7 you have to play rook d2. Otherwise, I think it's very, very dangerous. But yeah, this is enough. So after king f1, I don't think I had anything better than what I achieved.
Exactly. So the game finished in a draw. I'm sure that you noticed that one board was empty today. Jan-Krzysztof Duda withdrew officially from the tournament. So what do you think about it? And have you ever actually had similar experience withdrawing from the event?
You know, I wanted to do this so many times. You know, probably even yesterday I wanted the same. Yeah, like so.
I know you didn't feel well, also. Yes.
Yeah, well, also, but yeah, I guess it should be something serious. So I hope like everything will be well with Jan-Krzysztof. So, but yeah, maybe this tournament is a little bit, you know, doomed. So last year it was like some another reason, but already after 3 rounds, one player decided to withdraw. This year it's a different story, but already after first round, yeah. So yeah, happens.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, Jan. All the best of luck in the last rounds. Please stay with us till the end.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anastasia. Well, there you heard it himself. Nepo's doing his best to get himself into trouble. He didn't do it. And that brings us to our results after this one draw. But more draws seem to be heading our way, Jovi.
Perhaps. But there we do see it there, the first result of the day between Levon, Aronian and Ian Nepomniachtchi. It was a draw. Some very impressive analysis there from Nepomniachtchi, showing us he might have tried to get himself into trouble, but he had it all worked out.
He did. One player who hasn't worked things out very well, F7, F5, a move came out of the blue for me, Peter.
And it
Firouzja,
also,
what is that?
I'm not keeping a close enough eye on the clocks to be able to produce the exact figure, but it feels like 25 minutes to play it as well, pretty much equalizing the clock situation. I think Alireza was doing quite well on the clock, but c4 clearly took him by surprise. And the reply is very unusual, because completely ignoring c4 and also to a degree ruining your kingside situation. Yeah.
Isn't Queen e3 a screamer?
Queen e3 seems very strong. It becomes very concrete, though. I've only just kind of was alerted to this.
Right.
So I'm not entirely up to scratch here as to what's going on. But Queen e3 looks very obvious, and even c takes d5, which is maybe a less obvious move because you need to have the answer to Queen takes d5. But yeah, the engine suggests Queen e2 here is unbelievably strong, followed by surprisingly b2, b3, and then bishop c4 becomes a threat. So. It now becomes a question of whether Richard can calculate this very cleanly, because it seems like the move f5 is very much giving him an opening to try and exploit this, shall we say, speculative decision by Alireza.
And why did he play f5? What convinced him that he needed to make this weakening?
He disliked something about knight takes c4, but I think until we get to the player interviews, we will not really know for sure what that was, because I'm pretty sure he also got here. And I think if you get to this position and you realize that you pretty much always have the bailout option of taking on g5, not with the pawn, which is actually working in many cases, but with the bishop, which immediately gets the queens off the board as well.
Yeah.
You probably aren't going to be in too much trouble, and it's difficult for me to believe that he's playing f5 as a way to play. That he believes that he has an advantage here. Right. So, curious decision. I would like to talk to him about it afterwards.
Well, one player we can talk to, Jovi, at Anastasia in studio with Levon. Let's jump to her.
Yeah, welcome, Levon, to the studio, and happy Thanksgiving for you today.
Thanks,
is it the first time that you're celebrating this holiday in the US?
Yes, yes.
What are the plans?
Well, I have friends over from New York, so they're going to introduce me to the Thanksgiving.
Yeah, okay. So it's going to be a great experience today. So, but before that, we had to play. You had to play the game. I feel also like I'm playing with you guys. You know, that's why I say we had to play. So what happened in this one? Jan mentioned that he mixed up something in the opening. So how did it look for you from your side?
Yeah, I thought that bishop a6 is a bit of a dubious idea, and I actually liked my position. Of course, I have many ways to proceed in this position. I mean, knight b5 is quite tempting generally. I mean, just strategical, but I thought this queen e2, e4 is very direct and could be very strong, and I could kind of like my position. I mean, of course, white has many options in this position, you know. I was thinking of queen d3 also possible, but I thought, you know, this endgame should be very pleasant. And
you have this better pawn structure.
Yeah, so far I thought what I was doing made sense, but then I think g4 is a terrible move. I actually really missed this d4 idea, because it was not possible prior to that, and then I kind of got carried away because my position was so nice. Yeah, I should just play slowly, you know, just rook c1, king f2, king to f3, and I think it's a very pleasant position for white. You know, just not necessarily winning, but
like pleasant.
It's an edge. Yeah, it's an edge. You can play forever.
Yes, yes. Can you explain? I mean, why you think that it's so good for white? I mean, because we can see the evaluation of the computer.
Yeah, let's say, for example, rook c1, knight e6, king f2. Because I mean, strategically, there is much more risk for black, because so this pawn is easily blocked, and I do have a plan to push with f5. While for him, you know, it's difficult to find like a concrete plan. So eventually, you know, I will push g4 and I will get what I want, because once the pawn goes to d3, bishop e3. So black's knight is not being activated, and therefore white's advantage can be significant here.
I understand. So let's say this g4 was the critical moment of the game, and after that...
Yes, because when he played knight e6, I thought f5... I actually thought the sole point of knight e6 is to play knight g7 here. Bishop g5, rook d7, I thought that this is what I was looking at. You know, and then d4, I thought this is very interesting, because I can play a rook e1 or rook d1 and try to play e6. Maybe I was still overestimating my chances, if it's nothing.
No, it looks really optically so good for white.
Yeah.
I mean, try to play it with black. I don't know why computer is so optimistic for black, but it doesn't look so well.
Yeah, yeah. Somehow, maybe I'm not in time. Yeah. But yeah, after d4, yeah, I didn't believe in bishop h7. Although I saw that possibility, I thought it definitely not going to work. So I decided, you know, to call it a day just to play solid. Because this is clearly a drawish position. So.
Yeah, and the game finished at the end in the draw. How can you assess your participation so far? 3 rounds already. Finished the game with Fabi yesterday.
Yeah, it was not one of my proudest moments. I really overestimated my position yesterday. I thought that with the rook against the bishop, I can never be worse, but because of lots of tactical reasons, my position is very difficult to play. So, but then I really got lucky. Yeah.
I like the moment when you start pushing g5, you know, still hoping to create some counterplay. It was like, I think, a good attempt, and Fabi somehow didn't find also the correct moves.
Yeah, there you know, I couldn't be really second guessing there. I just had to play something, because it can be very dangerous, this type of positions.
For sure. And Jan-Krzysztof Duda withdrew from the tournament today. What do you think about the situation right now?
Well, he's a brilliant player. I mean, what all we can wish for is for him to get healthy, you know. And I mean, he's a really, really nice person. And I look forward to be seeing him in other tournaments. I hope he will recover quickly.
Yeah, ever happened to you that you were playing ill during the tournament or withdrew from the tournament? Have this ever happened to you before?
Once I was on the verge of withdrawing. I got food poisoning, a terrible food poisoning in Mexico City in 2007, the World Championship. And I decided to play, but throughout the tournament I would be just crying. I would be just, you know, getting in the resting area and just,
oh my gosh,
just to cry, because I was feeling so sick. I think I got some sort of a dysentery.
Oh my gosh, this was really... And you still can play, no?
Yes, but...
Chess players, they never give up, you know? They always keep playing. I remember myself, fever, whatever, I would still come and play.
Well, you know, this was my first candidate, and I qualified there by winning the World Cup. And after winning the World Cup, I had to play 2 matches to qualify.
Yes.
And I beat Magnus Carlsen, and I beat Alexei Shirov.
So how can you withdraw from this?
Yeah.
No, it's not possible, right? I remember also you haven't played in Sochi one time, right?
Yes.
That you had to cancel.
Yeah,
but it happened
that
before,
time,
yes.
Yeah, that time I was really, really ill. I think I wasn't sure, but I think it was COVID. I also think I got COVID during the Olympiad in India.
So I have a history. We have a history here. Okay, Levon, really all the best of luck for you. Stay healthy, everything should be fine. And happy Thanksgiving once again. And we are going back to the studio, to you guys.
Thank you, Anastasia, and thank you, Levon, for sharing his thoughts with us. He looked a little bit more dejected, actually. Like, he was disappointed that he didn't press as hard as he would
That's
like
the worst
to.
part about it. It's okay making a draw, well-played game, but when you feel like you had a very significant advantage and then you didn't put any pressure on Nepo, then you feel like you left a lot on the table, Peter.
Yeah, he did seem very disappointed with his play. I think more than he deserves to feel. I don't think his advantage was at any point as significant as his face there was suggesting.
Right.
But still, I very much understand his feeling because that description he gave to one of the positions he could have gotten and didn't. I could play forever there. It's that's exactly what you don't like to let go of. Against a very strong opponent such as Jan, when you get up an endgame which you can press risk-free for some time, you feel like you really should have tried. But he missed something tactical, and then the game
Tell us about the position, this ending between MVL and Fabi.
This one is also likely disappearing because bishop c5. MVL did what I sort of expected him to do. I thought bishop c5 is a very good move, apart from allowing specifically rook c2. Bishop d4 or bishop b4, but frankly, if you want to play bishop b4, you never play.
You could start.
Yeah, you never play bishop c5 to begin with. Bishop c4 and this break, and after b3, b4 here. The engine suggests there is no even necessity to do anything on the queen side. It goes g5, for instance, and starts pushing the same plan that we were describing earlier.
Right.
There is knight d7, knight b8, but the engine says it doesn't really frighten it very much.
Right.
But you can also make an immediate draw by playing a6, a5. I was curious about the 8 takes b4, but that might lose. Maybe not, actually. The evaluation does seem to suggest that in the time that white will need to get the king over there, we will probably be in time to land our king somewhere on the g3 square and make a draw. Yes, gives zeros currently. Yeah. But nobody really does that because the move rook a3 exists.
Right.
Which is just much simpler.
Right.
And the pawns will come off either immediately or, let's say you play b5 and I put my rook behind and I start pushing my own passer. And once again, you can get the pawn to b7. Let's say you do this, you play b7, and black is not really threatening rook b1, a1. But he also will never play bishop a7 because this will queen. Right. So this is also a position of complete balance. Nobody really is doing anything here at all. Right. So yeah, I'm expecting, Fabi is currently, I think, trying to figure out if he has any real winning chances with a move like g5. Mm-hmm. And he has played g5, so he feels that he is running no risks and can continue for a while, which is, I think, a correct assessment of the opinion of the position. But draw is still a massively favored result here.
Okay, thank you for that. So whilst this position looks very balanced, let's move on to another position. So I'm looking at Anish Giri against Wesley So, and of course Richard Rapport against Alireza Firouzja. That one, well, your move.
Yeah, well, I've been desperately trying to get it. I thought Queen E3. You said C4 takes D5 was the. I thought Queen E3 was really the move that I found myself attracted to, but we didn't analyze it.
No, not really. I pointed out CD5 because honestly, I was surprised the engine liked it.
Okay.
And I just wanted to point out that Queen E3 is not the only solution.
Right.
But in terms of human moves you will actually make with your hand, I think Queen E3 is very much top of the list, creating, we're still dreaming of giving mate on the king side.
Right.
But we're also threatening pretty much to win the game with knight e6, because if that trade happens on the e6 square, the entire position will collapse.
Which has happened. He has played bishop f6,
well,
not
really, because he has bishop takes b2 here.
Okay.
And white needs to play king b1. Actually, knight e6 is very strong, and if Richard clearly hasn't missed bishop takes b2 because it really is the only explanation for bishop f6 allowing knight e6. just to explain, if you do take on b2, black will give a check from f6. This is still quite good for white, but the engine does suggest that this provides black with decent drawing chances. This is not that clear. Our king is now also somewhat vulnerable, and we aren't really giving mate immediately. We have to, still do some things to create direct threats. King b1, on the other hand, is very, very strong because you have to play bishop d4. The rook on f8 is hanging. Any kind of a romantic move like queen f6 does not appear to actually deliver any mate. You can try some beautiful diagonal threats, but after c2, c3, providing white pieces access to the b2 square, if you continue doing naive things, a move like queen e2 here solves all of white's problems and there is no mate. So at least the engine's suggestion is to go back to d4, after which white very simply takes twice. And with the bishops controlling so many squares and also c4, c5 coming, there will never be any serious attack on the queen side. And for white, it's just a very dominant position. This is an unbelievably strong bishop. The black bishop, you can put it on e6, but it has no future on e6.
Your best move is f5, f7.
Absolutely. You would very much like to play 5 f7 here.
Yeah, bishop e6.
So some position like this, frankly, it looks
terrible,
ruinous for black. Yeah. I'm shocked it's not worse than it is on my screen. Very, very sharp continuation expected because knight e6 is already on the board. I also want to mention this is move 15. Richard is below half an hour mark and Alireza quickly approaching the half an hour mark. So we might have a very interesting time trouble, or a mutual time trouble on our hands.
Wow, knight e6. It just looks visually just so much superior. I just didn't even consider the move bishop f6. That wasn't even on my radar.
You can't really
either.
defend against knight e6, though. There aren't really good options. You can play something like queen d7, but the engine even just spends a tempo on playing b2, b3 and says, I have all the time in the world.
Is not hanging on g5.
We put the queen on g3, we play rook h1. We are never, now that black played a5 and didn't do anything in the center, we're pretty much never worried about black taking on g5. So this is very, very one-way traffic according to the machine.
Okay, wonderful.
Well,
Thank
sharp
you, Peter.
game there. Thank you, Peter. And let's remind ourselves of the results. So we did have one game decided. That was between Levon, Aronian and Ian Nepomniachtchi. That game did finish in a draw. Still everything to play for in all the other games. And it's time for us to take our second break of the day. But don't go anywhere because we have a nice video lined up you can enjoy. Earlier on, yesterday, Anastasia Kalovic, she asked Nepomniachtchi about his encounter against Leinier Dominguez. So have a look.
Jan, welcome to St. Louis. Welcome to Grand Chess Tour. It's great to see you here again. What do you think in general about state of affairs in the chess world on the top? Let's speak a little bit about it. Let's say Ding absence, Magnus doesn't want to play, he says, so many classical events. I mean, there are some changes. There are, some new trends. Like, what do you think about all this? New players, new generation is coming.
Well, Magnus, last year or something, he's acting a little bit like l'enfant terrible of chess. Yeah, so I would say we're not expecting. I think some chess fans expecting something different from him, but I think he totally claimed his role, to his right. To enjoy, to chill, not to be as competitive as before, but still he's insanely strong. And I think if we take all three time controls altogether, he's still the strongest. But his recent classical results are still quite good, but not as impressive as before. So maybe he would like to work on this a little bit and to get back to his top rating and top shape. Speaking of Ding, as far as I know, he's feeling not great. So probably he has some issues. So all I can do is to wish him some speedy and full recovery and convey him Can't wait to see him playing again. Yeah, so some rumors say that it will be already in Vaikanze, but yeah, we will see. So what else? Okay, like you know, like always, someone is suspected to be cheating. Yeah, others are suspecting him. Yeah, and so on.
Nothing.
So yeah, pretty routine. Pretty routine stuff.
What about new generation, let's say, and also their successes and the fact that some of the young guys are playing in the candidates tournament? What do you think about Prague?
Indians are, you know, like last year I expected to, let's say, Uzbekistan team to win an Olympiad or to play well in Olympiad, so let's say in 2024. But they, came faster than I expected. Yeah, so it was like, well, two years earlier than I thought. And also Indian teams are very, very strong, of course. And that's not surprising that, right now, I guess there are already like two Indian players in the candidates. So I would say that Gukesh or Pragnananda were expected there, one of them. And Gukesh, I thought that maybe based on the FIDE circuit, he would be there, but seems like Anish overcame him, there.
The moment.
Yeah, at the moment, but it's obvious that maybe he's playing a bit too much, so at some point, I think last couple of months, he just ran out of energy. And I think he needs some time to recharge. What was surprising is that we did of course, was like a well-known player with a great theoretician, worked with a lot of top GMs, but I was quite impressed when I played against him in the World Cup. So to be honest, I expected him to perform not as well in rapid section against me, but he just played insanely strong, way better than I could imagine. And that's quite unfortunate. I think that he was stopped by Abbasov, but what to do? So anyway, he played so nice in Isle of Man. Other players from India, like young guys, like of course Gukesh and Eric Gaisi, and also I think Sadwani in a couple of years. They're quite strong, and they have all the time in the world basically, to work at chess, to get better, so that's clearly, this happens sooner or later. Then some young lads are coming, but also our generation, like 90s and 90s and early 90s, also not so. Not so weak.
No, not at all.
Still, and not too old. So maybe for quite some time we hold the pressure. But
Speaking about yourself, let's say, where do you place yourself in all this top, chess world? And do you think you still have chances? And are you fighting to get the first rating in the world?
Well, actually, when I was asked what are your plans for the match, I was kiddingly answering all right, okay, I don't care about the match, I want to get my 2800s. And that's probably one of the things, some innocent joke I was punished for. So I guess I had 27,2799.8, which is not enough. And that was it. So I don't know about the first rating. It would be difficult to overcome Magnus. Maybe he does this instead of me. So if he keeps on playing in open tournaments, I guess sooner or later he would find himself in among the mortals. I would really love to get some to get something like 28 plus, because of, especially now, then it's huge rating deflation, because of all these new FIDE rules. I guess pretty much everyone is losing his rating right now, apart of maybe Fabio or Hikaru, but they are having some great season. So this would be still quite pleasing, but I think this is not the main goal. So if you play well, you get everything. You get rating, you get titles. You you get wins, and if you play not so well, then you get nothing. Yeah, so the goal is the same. Yeah, just to learn chess and to play well.
Yeah. And I wish you to play well in the tournament. So the best of luck for you, Jan.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you for the interview.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Women's Grandmaster Begim Tokhorjanova. I will be creating content for Grand Chess Tour. Follow us on social media and catch more behind-the-scenes content.
The St. Louis Chess Club is the premier chess facility in the United States. We bring the educational benefits of chess to thousands of students across the St. Louis area. We also promote chess at the highest levels, hosting all levels of the U.S. championships, as well as high-profile tournaments that attract the world's best players. Become a member and enjoy perks such as free classes and lectures, weekly tournaments, and so much more. Visit stlouischessclub.org to claim your membership today.
Yeah, it's amazing what the club has done for chess in general because, it's already been 15 years and they've done countless national championships, tournaments for juniors, helping around schools, and they've just grown the game so much across the United States.
I think if I look at my own career and I look at American chess in general, we're in a much better place than we were 15 years ago. And so the contributions have been immense. And of course, it's all thanks to Dr. Gina Sinquefield and Rex Sinquefield.
I would say that St. Louis Chess Club is like a rock in the ocean of chess, and we know that it's there. It is there, it will be there. I think it sends a hope that the game of chess will always stay afloat by the mere fact of its existence. I think it sends positive waves across the globe.
The World Chess Hall of Fame, located in the heart of St. Louis's historic Central West End. Want to know why chess has intrigued people around the world for nearly 1,500 years? Stop by and learn about the impact of chess from our 3 floors showcasing the art, culture, and history of the game. The World Chess Hall of Fame has something for everyone to enjoy. For more information on current exhibits, please visit worldchesshof.org.
We are back with our coverage of round
We're so
3.
back.
And just before the coverage started, Yasser sprang a joke on me, so that's why I'm smiling. Thank you.
It was a goodie. Come on.
It was a good one, yes.
Right.
And let's remind ourselves, for those of you that just joined, of the round 3 results so far. Well, 4 games outstanding, but there we see there was a draw between Levon Aronian and Ian Nepomniachtchi. And just to remind everyone that Jan-Krzysztof Duda has withdrawn from the tournament, so that means that Leinier Dominguez will be having a bye today.
It seems like there's a drawing virus that is going around here at the Sinquefield Cup because of the 3 remaining games. Everything's balanced except for that game between Rapport and Alireza. Alireza's decision of F7, F5 really was confounding. We'll have to ask them.
Very much looking forward to the players' interview.
Right, but the current position just looks so good for Richie. Obviously, the rook is hanging, the knight is forking the rook, the queen, the bishop on b2 is hanging, and it seems like bishop d4 is absolutely box required. Peter?
He is reaching for it, and yeah, he will play bishop d4. Queen f6, I was wondering in the break whether he wants to gamble with something like queen f6, knight takes f8, and now a move of some description, but what probably drove him away from this is that would have been maybe even playable because there's a lot of counterplay potentially with knight a4 coming in. But the existence of the move queen e8, which forces you now, you've just sacrificed some material and now you absolutely have to trade queens on f8. Mm-hmm. And then it really becomes very, very unattractive because that wasn't the dream. So bishop d4 played, white pretty much needs to take on d4, knight takes d8, bishop takes e3, followed by, there's also a precise move d5, d4 here, but it's not even required, rook takes d8 is also playable. This is clearly a manageable situation for black. So you want to take knight takes d4, and before the break we were discussing c takes d4, queen takes d4, which is unbelievably unattractive for black.
Right.
I think rook e8 is a much better fighting chance. And
Which is what you guys were discussing on the break.
And we were trying to discuss it in sort of human terms without staring too much at the computer evaluation, which I think Jovanka is correctly pushing me to do more than I'm doing here, to be honest. I still feel that even without knowing, and I do know by this point what it says, I would feel that white should be better, because I think the whole position hinges around white establishing control over the long dark diagonal.
Right.
So putting the bishop on e5, eventually black will have to take on d4. That bishop will land on d4. With the bishop on d4, we will no longer really have to worry about our own king, and it will exert a lot of pressure against the black king. So both queen g3 and even the immediate bishop e5 here.
I would find bishop e5 very attractive, just for what you were saying. If you now take on d4, just for argument's sake, go for it. And if I do play queen takes d4...
Queen takes d4 is playable, but queen g3 is even stronger to play bishop takes d4 next move. Both are very good. The one thing about the move bishop e5 is that you have to calculate knight d7. You have to be sure that you're not blundering this. But seems to be working out for white. Even knight f3 seems to be working. There's also this nice little cheapo.
I'm a piece up.
Yeah. Not really, no. After c takes d4, you will have to continue playing an equal material game. But now after queen f4, we're threatening c takes d5, we're threatening queen takes d4. And we will now, within the next few moves, it looks like white will establish control in the center. And once you establish control in the center, you just have better pieces. And with equal material, you will be the side attacking. So I think, I mean, this is incredibly sharp, but I feel like even without the crutches of my magic screen, I would be quite optimistic here with white. Rook e8 hasn't been played yet, though.
And incidentally, this is quite an important game for Alireza Firouzja, who is vying for that rating spot for the 2024 candidates. Because there you see it, the person with the highest rating on January the 1st will get that candidate spots to Toronto. And see, the live rating for Alireza is 27.62, but Anish Giri there on 27.54. So not far behind is Wesley. So
yeah, we did see rook e8. I wanted to get in the point that after the move bishop e5 takes on d4, a variation Peter wouldn't allow me. Queen takes d4. I just love the fact that I'm dominating the long diagonal, so much so that my own king is really safe, right? I can put my king on a8, and any ideas of knight to b6 to c3, it simply doesn't work.
I think queen e7 is the problem, though. I think the reason
queen takes d4, queen e7.
Yeah, I think the reason it prefers queen g3 is specifically queen e7, and we might land that check on before, which I think as white would very much like not to allow.
Also, isn't there going to be a trade? For instance, say you defend the bishop, you go pawn takes, pawn d takes c4.
Yeah, we can.
And suddenly,
well, moment, just because things are currently hanging. Bishop takes c4 check.
Knight takes.
Yeah, I'm just trying.
You're absolutely right. White will still be better, but maybe this is somewhat more manageable for black. The full extent of my argument is that we may be allowing them a little bit too much. I'm not disagreeing with your assessment that white is much better here. It's just that maybe you can be even harsher towards the black position.
And that after queen e7, there's something very, very confounding about this, I must say. Queen e7, and I have no trickies.
None that are immediately available. Yeah, I don't see anything.
Right.
Rook h1
looks very logical.
Looks very logical.
And then after d takes c4, it seems like there are no jumps with the bishop on e5, because
like bishop g7, all of these desirable captures.
But the existence of queen b4 check, the existence of queen b4 check discourages us from that.
So we do have the current position with rook e8. Also, I wanted to say that the game between MVL, that ending, it's strange. If Levon felt like he left something on the table. I'm really feeling like MVL had as well, because maybe this ending was nothing, but I really... could we go back to before the move, Bishop C5? So if I had played if MVL had played Knight D3, because I really wanted to play against the weak pawns.
Yeah, we had a position on the board which we thought was fine, but there's also a very clever way of playing here, I think, which starts with the move Rook D2.
I see.
Forcing you to, because the bishop is still on A3.
Right, if it was on a good square.
Yeah, I'm trying to get you to place your pieces on port, like specifically the idea, of course, is Knight C5, Rook A2.
Right.
And you will have to drop back to C1, and among other things, I can just go Rook C2,
which
Rook
is
C3,
fine, of course.
Which will, of course, make a draw.
Right.
So I think, objectively, black should be fine. I also think that because of exactly what Fabi played, Bishop C5 is very much a draw offer.
Right.
Because after Rook C2, if you're intending Bishop D4, and it seems like you are intending Bishop D4 because this, this is exactly the kind of a position where you might start regretting your life choices, with A6, A5 being a threat. Like, you can very easily imagine this suddenly becoming maybe even a bit better for black, even though currently you're just in time to stop A5 and this is equal. So he was clearly planning to play Bishop D4, and as we discussed, after C5, you're pretty much never winning this game with white. But maybe he wasn't, honestly, too much better.
Again, one of those optical illusions, as, again, a draw suspected. We did leave the position in its current position with a pawn on G5, and I guess MVL just went into a 30-minute break.
Yeah. He is maybe feeling a bit of pressure here, because hard to imagine white honestly playing this sharply for a win. Bishop B6 is maybe a move that indicates that he is thinking of playing for a win, because the way to create a threat here would be to make sure that the B4 cannot be traded for A6. Let's say you put the bishop on A5, and then you try playing Knight D7, Knight C5, and picking it up.
Right.
But that takes an age. And if we imagine F5 probably gets played, Bishop A5, F4, you play Knight D7, and let's say black decides to respect the threat and just goes Rook C6. And yes, you can put it on C5, but there's no longer really any point to it. And black has made so much progress on the other side of the board that equilibrium probably hasn't been shaken yet. But if you imagine the king already on F5, I'm starting to think that maybe black is actually playing. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, so this game looks suspiciously like it's going towards a draw. The game between Wesley, so when we left it, it was bishops of opposite colors, because we saw this move G6, bishop takes
Yeah, when we
H6.
left it, the rooks were still on the board, and they've all been swapped off, and suddenly...
The rooks were here, yeah. King F7,
I
Knight
was
E1.
liking Wesley's position a lot, actually, because, he has the possibility to jump into D4, but... Yeah, it looks very, very blocked.
Yeah.
And that's a British understatement of the year, right?
Right.
That is one very sorry horse, the only one.
But it is a great defender.
It
Knights
is, yeah.
make good defenders. King's best friend.
Well, if the idea from Wesley's perspective is to play H5 and G4, try to create a weakness on the F3 square, the knight is anticipating any direct attacks against the F3 pawn with the knight on E1. This looks, to my eyes, even though I understand what you're saying, that black has some pressure on the king side, I think a draw is just inevitable.
I don't think it's enough, yeah.
I just can't imagine.
Okay, let's push you. King E2.
Right.
And now let's improve the king.
Do you want to improve your bishop or your king? It's up to your choice. What would you like, Jovi?
I don't know what I want, but I was just going to move my king to the center.
Okay.
Just for fun.
King F6, let's say, right? I'll mark time. I'll play knight to C2. And what I really want to do is remind you that I will have an active queen. I'm going to play the move Queen A8 or Queen A7. And you're not just going to have one-way traffic on the F3 pawn.
For my personal preference,
Please.
I would always keep the knight on E1 and would already play Queen A8 there.
Right.
I think Ivan shockingly is the best square for that piece. Maybe are you worried about knight d4 check maybe, and then queen takes d4? Yeah.
That was the reason for my slight delay there. Knight to d4 check.
No, but that's not possible because
Bishop
of my
is-
grand
bishop
king
is-
f6.
Ah, yes, you've left it. Very clever of you, inscrutable. No, the bishop is hanging. Oops. Sorry.
No, but the idea is certainly valid. Like for instance, you know, you didn't have to go king f6. You could have done your bishop d7. Let's try that one.
Okay, bishop d7. And again, I think whether you preface it with knight c2 or you go immediately, there is an active queen. And, well...
Okay, now g4. Let's put you to the test.
Okay, for sure one pawn gets
Yeah.
traded. Now I have a question, though, because you're giving my knight the f3 square. How badly do I want it? I don't know if I want it so badly. I'll go queen h8.
Yeah, and here I was thinking g3.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the interesting one. Force it to g1.
Right.
We are effectively a piece up, but do we win?
Well, exactly. Fortunately, it is active even though it's trapped on g1. It is hitting his pawn on a c5. As are the clocks a factor? No.
No.
17 minutes, 18 minutes for Anish. 40. Yeah, h5, h3. Just ensuring that the h-pawns get traded. Okay, I see that as being a very balanced game. If you don't mind, I'm going to take us right back to Firouzja, as we've just seen the move rook e8, and a bit of a think now for Richie, as he's going down to 18 minutes.
And how many moves have they made?
So it was
20 moves.
bishop e5 and queen g3.
Both of those are strong. I'm also only just noticing that you can include bishop c7, which we had in a different position, but we haven't discussed here at all. But maybe provoking queen d7 doesn't really do anything particularly good for us. I don't know. It feels like we've prevented black from playing bishop e6, but also, which might be more relevant, we've protected the g7 pawn for black. So if we do exactly what we were planning to do anyway, queen g3, c takes d4, and bishop e5, that no longer creates a threat of mate in one, so black is free
because
to...
we cleverly forced black to defend the mate threat.
Yeah, we absolutely insisted they make a useful move. So they made a useful move.
Genius. I think at the break, sorry, Jovi, you were suggesting this idea of queen g3 and maybe grabbing the pawn on h6.
Or threatening it, at least.
Well, exactly, right? So let's have a look at that. So queen g3. Now, black's a piece down, so we presume he wants to capture the knight on d4. Now, here's the question for us. Are we going for the h6 pawn?
I wasn't sure about this because after queen f6 is a move.
Yeah, I think we start by playing queen f6 to drive it away. It goes to g5, I assume. The queen probably goes to c6, it looks right.
And this is where we kind of regret that we're not lording over the long diagonal anymore, because there are ideas. Our king feels exposed.
It becomes a race. If we could already play h4, h6 here, we are probably mating black very, very quickly. But it takes us two moves. So if we go h5, black will probably take on c4 with the pawn.
A nice tempo against the bishop.
h6, c takes d3 maybe. I'm still not convinced this isn't working, to be honest. cd3, rook d3?
I know. It's sort of like our pawn is really, really dominating, and we are a move away from mating.
Pretty much, yeah. Once it lands on g7, it feels like we no longer need to count pieces, which should be breaking through and delivering mate on the king side.
But can you go bishop e6?
Yeah,
I was thinking of sacrificing on a2.
Okay. Away we go.
Yeah, bishop a2, and my
By the way, our clever move of
bishop c7 is on the board.
Bishop c7 is on the board. Our clever decision of forcing black to make a decent move was played.
Yeah, we should probably.
This is a massively
try to work out why he
played bishop c7.
Also, there's a very direct issue with bishop c7, which I completely failed to appreciate in the beginning. You can actually take on d4 and take with the pawn on e3, which is
quite different than having a rook.
Massively important because it allows this simplification and
why?
No, this is an improvement for black. And this actually, once again, and this happens every day, and at some point I will just stop doubting whatever Jovanka tells me. In the break, we got here, and seems like there is a repetition in the game between Giri and...
there we can see a draw agreed between the players.
I'm not saying that the draws aren't hard fought. They are. But in some cases, the needle didn't move at all. It was balanced from start to finish. This is one of those games, Peter,
pretty much.
where it just feels like from start to finish, nothing happened, and just mutually accurate play by the players. And yet again, the draw virus continues here between... Peter.
Yeah, so returning to this position, Jovanka was telling me, let's not look at the evaluation and let's try and figure out how easy it is to assess. And I kept on saying that I think I would still take white here, but Richard is a stronger player than I am, a much more active player than I am, and a very, very sharp tactical player. So should be very much up his alley. The only thing maybe that was hampering him is being low on time. And he burned half his time here and actually offered an endgame which he is probably not winning. So I'm very much accepting that my evaluation probably was too influenced by the ticker there. And
but there's a saying in chess that the spectator sees everything.
Kibitzer sees everything. Yeah.
Exactly.
Bishop c7 is such a strange move to my eyes because bishop e5 is so obviously natural and good. I mean, yeah, maybe I would be looking at queen g3, but bishop c7 would be down the list.
I think we have to explain about queen d7 because apparently I was worried about both queen f7 and queen a4 here, but apparently queen f7 just completely loses to queen f4, and c takes d4 is sadly unplayable because of bishop h7 check, which is something that I missed originally. And after queen a4, the engine very calmly goes bishop e6, knight e6, and after knight takes c4, absolutely only move, but wins on the spot. So, strictly speaking, you cannot even play queen d7. Queen d7 is probably just a losing mistake in engine parlance. But you can take c takes d4, and if you want to continue with queen's on, you have the move queen f4, or I guess queen g3, but probably queen f4. But this is, I think, very obviously an inferior version of the positions we were discussing.
Massively inferior.
Because you now have to spend that tempo getting the
bishop back. I mean,
and the queen on d7 is not poorly placed at all. It has a lot of targets on the queen side. This is now a very unclear, very playable position for black. And once again, the option of bishop takes d8 exists, but then you have to snap on b6, otherwise you're worse. And yeah, I don't believe white is better here.
No.
You will pick up the pawn on f2, but black will put the rook on e5. The king belongs on d6. It looks like this should be a very manageable endgame for black. And you're also not winning this position. For instance, very simply because of this. And the mass simplifications are likely to end in a dreaded draw.
Do you know, it just reminded me of a story. You know, when I was doing commentary, Shaq was playing a rapid game and he sacrificed his queen. And we were like, oh my God, he's blundered his queen. What is he doing? Because we were influenced by the evaluation bar. And after the game finished, Shaq won. And he turned to his coach and his manager and he said, great game, great sacrifice, right? And the goes, no, that was ridiculous what you did. You just threw away your queen for not that much.
Because now you reminded me of a game that was played here in St. Louis, and it was between Nepo and Shaq, and both players had completely, misconceived, and it was like -5. It wasn't even close. They had both missed key moments where the where the valuation bar had gone.
I remember that.
Yeah, right. That was a horror.
That post-game interview with Shah
was an absolute classic.
It deserves to go. It deserves to have like millions of views.
World Chess Hall of Fame.
At some point, we showed him a line where he basically blundered mate in 2 in some 3-move line, and he went, "Oh, come on!"
Yeah. That became a meme for us.
It was so great.
Come on.
Come on.
Everything was.
That was
terrible.
fantastic. Yeah, that was really, really good.
Draw in Anish, Wesley. Just take us there, Jovi. Tell us, when we left it, we thought, okay, Wesley might press.
Yeah, but if you were going to press, here's the turning point. You're going to press with G4.
Yeah.
You're not going to press with H4. H4 is just locking the position down.
Totally.
And here you go. The players managed to find their repetition. They did tell us they're very good at finding the repetition.
And a very, as you said, Peter, a very balanced game, a correct game. But now we go back to this game of Richard for just a moment, because from what everything Peter has just said, Jovi, a long think, bishop c7, question mark, just blunder. I mean, there goes the advantage. Whatever advantages there might have been, they had to be pursued with bishop e5, which got my vote. I didn't really think of anything else. Queen g3, but a long think provoked the move bishop c7. Do you find that happens often in your own play, that after a long think you come up with a mistake?
Wrong think.
Yeah. Long think, wrong think?
Yes, unless it's particularly forcing.
Right. You're just making a calculation, because here I just don't understand what Richard might have overlooked. I take a piece. You take my queen. Why else did you attack my queen? I take your queen. Your piece is hanging. You take my bishop. What else?
Well, it could also go back to a basic assumption. Like often when you're calculating, you think bishop attacks queen, queen moves. And then you get like bogged down into that forest, where you're thinking about all the calculations after queen to d7, what's going to be happening there, bishop. And then once you've kind of established that, you just play bishop c7. And as soon as you make the move, your brain goes, well, hang on a second. It doesn't need to move the queen. You can go pawn takes knight, attacking the queen. And
it could be one of those cases too, Peter, where you're looking at a line, you're dissatisfied, you go look at another line, then you come back, and then you come back to this position, and you see bishop h7 check, something you had missed, and then you go, oh, of course, happily bishop c7. To your point, you're attacking the queen moves, and then you suddenly stop and realize after you've released the bishop, the queen doesn't have to move.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this mistake in calculations so many times, and I've fallen victim to it many times as well.
With players as strong as this, I feel reluctant to suggest, but it feels that maybe c takes d4 was actually missed, because I know that the moment I realized bishop c7 existed, in my mind, it absolutely forced queen d7. And I think what could be the problem here is that both queens are already hanging.
Right.
So you calculate rook takes e3, bishop takes d8, you realize you will resign in that position because there is no further play available. You're down a piece.
Rook is hanging. You're down a piece.
And at that point, you realize you say to yourself, okay, the queen trade is bad.
Right.
So black needs to avoid the queen trade at all costs. So you calculate queen d7. You come to the conclusion that queen d7 is bad for black, and you play bishop c7. And then c takes d4 could sort of fall out of your line of vision.
Yeah.
It's still a bad miss, and a miss the tactical player of Richard's caliber doesn't make very often. Maybe we can take a look at the
players in action and have try read their body language.
Over the board. Let's go to those cameras in the World Chess Hall of Fame and see the players. As we see Alireza. You know, if I'm Anish Giri...
Oh, he's reaching.
Yeah,
and, he takes the knight.
There was that or resigns?
More or less, more or less. Would need precision from white, but queen d7 would have been bad.
But, you know, as you've been explaining to us, Jovi, the race for that candidate's spot by rating is so important. And, you know, if I'm in Anish's shoes, I'm going over to Richard. Why did you play bishop?
And also something I wanted to talk about before Richard returns to the board is I wanted to ask the two of you, because for me, I don't know. I haven't played enough against Richard to know whether this is something or nothing. But I wanted to ask you, you make a mistake, you realize you made a mistake. Are you at the board at that point? Or do you actually get up and go away?
Mostly I'm at the board because I have Sitzfleisch, and I just try to have a poker face throughout the whole thing.
What about
I'm
you?
not at the board.
You're at the board?
No, I'm not at the board.
You made a mistake, you're aware of the fact you made the mistake, and then you get up from the board.
Yeah.
Because
you don't want to be at the board while your opponent is thinking.
Yeah, I don't want to actually reveal
Right.
To my opponent that there's something there. I don't want to look in that direction, you know.
Exactly.
That is exactly what I was sort of pointing at. Perhaps Richard is basically never at the board when it's not his move. But I thought the fact that he's not there with 15 minutes on the clock could be an indication that he quite confidently played bishop c7. At some point it dawned on him that queen d7 isn't forced. And after she takes d4, it's all going south. Somewhat south.
Okay.
And he decided not to telegraph it by sitting there and being unhappy.
One of to that issue, to what you've just said, one of the most extraordinary examples of blundering at the board, not sitting at the board, and there you have it. Takes on d4, bishop takes d8 by Richard. It was a match in Bonn, Germany, between Vladimir Kramnik and Deep Fritz, the chess engine. And what happened is Vladimir made a move, very confident move, signed it, stood up from the board, looked at the position, nodded his head, grabbed his coffee cup, looked again at the position, was about to go and get himself some coffee when the operator made mate 1.
But you know, Vlad gave us a first-hand recounting of that story.
I was watching, I was as a commentator. That was pretty shocking.
We very recently played for the same team, Jovanka, myself, and Vladimir. We played for the chess pensioners team in Düsseldorf.
Right,
and at some point,
the
topic of blundering mate in 1 came up, and Vladimir told us the entire story, where how he, because if not for mate in 1, he would suddenly be winning in a position which was very, very drawish until that moment. And he thought, okay, there's clearly some mistake, and he spent like, I don't want to lie about how many minutes, but his move was made in like maybe 10 minutes.
Right.
And in 10 minutes, he still hasn't spotted queen b1, h7 mate. And he made his move because in the end he thought, okay, I don't understand why I'm being allowed this chance, but maybe there's some glitch in the matrix. You know? And then he saw the absolutely shocked face on the operator, and he still thought it's because the program glitched and he is now winning.
Now -5.
And the crowd was like giving it away.
And then it lands on h7, and only at that point he realized what he's done, which is very unusual.
Now I can tell you the story from the other side. Matthias, he's in the hotel I'm staying in Bonn. And I asked him exactly at that moment, and he explains, well, the screen stopped working. The screen stopped working because mate in 1, there's no more engine evaluation, right? The screen, and he can't understand. Oh, he's thinking to himself, my God, the engine's turned itself off. You know, like, I'm stopping, it's over. You know? And he goes, oh, because it's mate in 1, queen h7. So his first reaction was like, oh my God, there's a glitch because the engine turned itself off.
It was the glitch on the other side.
Side.
We've established with Jovanka our own credentials, at least in that conversation. What about you? Have you blundered mate in 1 in tournament game?
No, I haven't. But I did.
Amateur.
Yeah, but I did have a very famous game, which was actually pretty funny. I'm playing John Watson. And I'm like 14 years old. He's international master John Watson, and I'm, class D, maybe E. Anyway, the point was that I'm playing my Perk defense, and I'm going B3, B2, A3, A2. I've got 2 pawns ready to make queens, and he gives me checkmate.
Okay.
So I have nothing else I could do. I promoted a pawn to a king.
Ah, you've done that. I've had that done to me. Yeah.
He took my king. He took my king on g8, and he came back and he took the king that was on a1. So I go back to Seattle, and I am very, very happy. How did you do? I don't care. I won 4, lost 3, doesn't matter. And I come to this game, and they go checkmate. And I go, no, I kinged my pawn. And I go, the game lasted another 20 moves. I go, Yasser, when you're mated, the game's over. I said, no. He's an international master. He knows the rules better than I do. Well, I got mated in 2 games. I got mated twice in 1 game. Let's go to Anastasia.
I was going to say.
Getting mated twice in 1 game. Not good.
So here we are, actually. So Wesley, welcome to the show. The game finished in a draw with Anish Giri, important game, like every game in this event, of course. So can you tell me, I was wondering until which point you knew the theory. Let's switch first of all to your game, because we're still analyzing Levon's position. So,
I actually knew around until move 11 or move 13. I couldn't remember exactly. But first of all, I didn't know that Anish was going to go for this line, because he's been playing the Italian during the entire Rapid. And then he went for the Endgame the other day. But, yeah.
But similar ideas with knight f5. I think he likes this kind of... I mean, it's typical for these positions, of course, but he brought his knight also to f5 in that one.
Yeah, but an interesting game. I mean, I play this with both colors, and it always seems when the knight gets to f5, white gets a pleasant position. But I wasn't sure. I was thinking for a long time with a4. I guess the engine doesn't like it. So maybe what I played is okay. I don't know. A4. Yeah, maybe what I played was good then, because
actually,
I thought a4 was the way to go, sacrificing a pawn. Yeah, I guess black is just fine here because I have the bishop pair. So if whenever the position opens up, I have counter chances. Like Anish told me he was considering d4 for a while, and I guess black has several good responses. I guess a4, like we looked at this position briefly right after the game. And it seems black has counterplay because the queen is not getting trapped.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like bishop b2, knight e3, already started to see some ideas, with knight e3.
Yeah, and now black is lucky to have knight e5.
Knight e5, yes, okay. Just to be sure that we're not losing the queen.
And then I can chop off the knight. Then now the queen is safe.
Yes.
Yes, so, but...
At the end, he didn't play this. Yes, he played bishop b3.
Yeah, he didn't like the move bishop e3 because it seems a bit slow, and now he can never play d4. I thought white could go a4 also to play in both wings. And then I was calculating bishop, and then play something like that. Now I have to figure out how to defend the c7 pawn. But I guess it's no problem.
Yeah, I saw you analyze for quite a long time with Anish on the way here.
Yeah, because Anish is always a great player to analyze with. He's got a lot of wisdom.
And ideas, he always is. So was he afraid of any moment, at any moment? What did he think about his position?
Yeah, I guess he wasn't very happy here. Black of the bishop pair.
Yes.
I don't know, but the position got real close. Like, I'm not sure how good this engine is. But I also made a mistake. Like, I played... what's this stupid engine? Like, giving...
It can be very... Yeah, don't really
White's better,
think
black's
that...
better.
I'm sure that your knowledge is better than this engine. So don't pay that much attention to it.
Yeah, like, it's giving almost -1. But I don't think... Yeah, maybe here, maybe take a knight b8. I don't know.
In this position, this moment, yes. So you always want to get to d4, right, with your knight. The question is at which moment and when, or b4, yes.
I think I was gonna play b4 first, but then I played g6 anyway. It was very stupid. Like bishop, knight e3. I guess it's still a draw, but yeah, I guess it's just a draw as well.
But maybe here you don't allow white to have a file. I don't know if it makes any difference. Yes, and like bishop d7, and maybe you keep.
And white has no plans because if he has no real plans. Like here, I can play bishop d6 or queen d6.
Defense c7, yes.
Yeah, I guess. Like I played this structure many times in my life.
Yeah.
So it's usually, I know black has a bishop pair, but at the same time, no way to get through.
Open the position so easily, yes.
Yeah, but well, I mean, I didn't want to lose on a Thanksgiving day, so.
This is of course something we don't like to do. Yes.
Yes. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Yes. Also happy Thanksgiving for you, Wesley.
So I guess it's pretty solid game, but
Somewhere here, around here, there was one moment where you remember that you started to move your knight on b8. Maybe instead of it, you could have chosen another road through. No, still we had rooks. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yes. Before, maybe you could go through f8, but I was wondering if you were afraid he will play bishop h6, trying to exchange the knight to the bishop or something like that. I mean, the same idea, but again, you keep the a file.
Oh, that's true. Maybe, yeah. But I was very confused at this point why Anish played bishop c1 to e3. I cannot just rook a1.
Okay.
And then I guess I have to play bishop b7. But at least now the bishop is blockaded. Like generally with d3, e4, you don't want the bishop there. Okay, maybe like h4. But I guess just queen here, and yeah, black is pretty solid. Like. I was a bit worried during the game my bishop could turn bad, the light scored. But I guess
point, yes.
it's nothing real because white needs to get f4 in, and it's just very difficult for him without allowing. I always have counterplay on d3.
At the very end, let's say, could you try, instead of closing the position, to push somewhere g4 instead of like h4, trying to... I mean, at the very end, like the moment you... Somewhere here, you know, in descending. I mean, only you have this idea to open the position,
I'm very surprised why he didn't play g4.
Oh, he had this chance.
I guess he was... Yeah, I guess he didn't...
Maybe he didn't want that you have this h pawn.
h5, h4. Yeah. My king is very vulnerable. Yeah, no, I think maybe Magnus would have won this as black. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's just completely drawn because if you use a stronger engine, even a slightly stronger, it will give all zeros.
Yeah, most probably, yes. But I mean,
also my bishop has no way to. Yeah, but I was surprised. Like king f1. Yeah, I guess it's just nothing. I thought he was gonna go g3, f4. Like, but if he plays g3, then maybe he gets some weaknesses. Like, for example, if I get this position, then now maybe I get some
bishop d7, yes, comes out.
Yes.
Yeah, looks
and
interesting.
the knight is badly placed. But with this pawn structure, I had a very similar pawn structure with my game against Magnus in Norway this year. And yeah, also White's pawn structure was impregnable in that game. So,
Wesley, one more draw. What to do with this event? Will anyone deliver the point, you know, will score? What do you think?
I said before the game, I'm very happy I won't finish last place for sure.
Okay.
But, I mean, in all honesty, I wish Jan-Krzysztof a speedy recovery. I hope his sickness is not too extreme. It's just the way the world is these days. You know, it's like everyone's getting sick. New diseases pop up left and right. I saw on the news the other day, and there seems to be some new respiratory disease in China again. But yeah, health is much more important than chess. So I wish him well.
Yeah, of course. And ever happened to you that you were sick during the tournament and you had to play when you really didn't feel well?
Nothing that serious, fortunately. Like, I generally finish my tournament. I think I withdrew twice in my life from a tournament, but they were open tournaments. Maybe I withdrew 2 or 3 times, but it's more of fatigue, like brain fatigue.
You didn't play well in this event, so what?
Sorry?
You didn't play well in those events?
Yeah, like I played in Aeroflot Open back in 2011, one example.
Okay.
I think 2011, yeah, 2011. And then I had to withdraw after 6 games. Just I couldn't play. I played in Waikanse before that, and it was too much. So it's more like brain fatigue. Like, I also had to play sometimes when I had a cold, or in the Olympiad last year, I wasn't feeling well for the first 2 rounds. But fortunately, it wasn't. I didn't have any serious diseases yet.
That's good.
Event.
That's good. Let's hope
Yeah.
everything will be fine with you, Wesley.
I'm not as old as
in the tournament. Okay, thank you so much. All the best of luck for you, Wesley, in the next rounds, and we'll go back to the studio to Yasser, Jovi, and Peter.
Thank you, Anastasia, and thank you, Wesley. And Wesley there showing us his draw against Anish Giri. So let's remind ourselves of the current results.
It's a draw fest.
It is still a draw fest. 2 games have finished. Anish Giri, Wesley So, as we saw there, and Levon Aronian was slightly disappointed with his play against Ian Nepomniachtchi. And 2 games remaining.
It feels like these 2 remaining games, especially the MBL Fabi game, that seems to be absolutely headed for a draw. And the game between Richie and Alireza, after the mistake, Bishop C7, Alireza's got a new lease on life, and he's pretty much okay, I would say.
He's completely fine, and I was honestly, I thought maybe something is wrong with our transmission software, because if we get to the position they have on the board currently, we left it somewhere around here. If EF2 rook f1 expected, and I was playing rook e5 and trying to bring the king over to d6, and Alireza went for a much more concrete plan
of trading pawns,
of activating the rook y a4 and just swapping f2 for h4, and also losing f5. And here he played rook b4 check, and I thought, how is Richie thinking?
You play king c1 and then you think.
Yeah, and I thought, honestly, I thought maybe something is wrong with the board, because there's just no way you put the king in the corner. But apparently, once again, I just don't understand anything, and I should just stop talking about chess. There's not much difference, in fairness. Both of these positions are very, very level. In some cases, you can even allow the pawn to reach d7. Let me show you.
This one,
and it does feel like a 3-time repetition is occurring between MVL and Fabi. So that will be yet again another draw. Please
11
continue.
out of 11 so far, and 1 left. So returning to our rook endgame.
Yes.
I have blundered the pawn on c2 here, but the bigger point is, let's say you do something like this.
Yes.
You go rook c7, you force white to double, you go king f7, and then we will play, basically, my idea is to play king e7, attack the pawn, force you to give a check with either of the rooks, go back and say, no, your pawn is hanging, sir. Would you like to go back?
Right.
So black has a lot of leeway here. You are not at all obliged to allow the pawn to land on d7, but you can if you absolutely must. And the way perhaps not to allow it comfortably is this very clever move, rook b4, b5, pinning it on the 5th for now, and then bringing the rook over to c5, perhaps putting the rook on d8. Black is just, frankly, untroubled. He's gone with rook d8 immediately just now as we were discussing this position. Seems maybe not to be the most precise move. Once again, I should stop even looking at this, because if I wasn't looking at the slight fluctuations of the evaluation, I would say pretty much
quite reasonable.
Pretty much any legal move in this position that doesn't allow white a lot of immediate progress will make a draw. And I think we should stand by that assessment.
And this game definitely does look like it's heading to a draw. And I'm thinking about, so many draws. Probably the single craziest tournament I've ever seen in terms of draws was a strange Linares event. Back in my day, there were 2 types of events. There were events with Garry Kasparov, and there were events without Garry Kasparov. That was it. And Gary played in the tournament, I think it was a 6-player double round robin, and essentially he won against every opponent 1 game and drew the other game. And everybody else drew.
I remember that too.
I mean, it was like crazy. Everybody else drew. The only decisive player was Gary, and he won all the games. I mean, it was just like really crazy.
Yeah, I think there's two incredibly similar cross tables from maybe the late 90s and the early 2000s, where this is exactly the final cross table. Gary on +5 and everybody else on -1.
Exactly.
I think there's actually more than one of those. I have this weird memory of seeing 2 of those.
Yeah, and by the way, after the move rook d8 by Alireza, Richie said, look, the only trump I have is my d-pawn, let me push it. Why he needs to do it with his king on a1 and not his king on c1, that will remain a mystery
I really
until we talk to the players and ask him why he did that. But d6...
Yeah, I think rook d7 is very logical, right?
Rook d7, rook c4, I like rook d7 too. That looks very logical. Jump in, Jovi. Yep.
Yeah, I was just wondering, this position looks very level, so I mean, how does white secure the draw?
How does white secure the draw? Okay.
Now, for instance, if you were to go rook to e5, threaten rook e... Why don't you're not even threatening rook e7?
I'm not threatening rook e7, no.
But you are threatening.
Okay, so let's say I go rook to c4, and I think we very much get a similar idea of what Peter was saying. You're going to approach the d-pawn with your king, and I'm going to wait for you to do that, and as soon as you play king e6, I'm going to suggest check, and you'll move your king, and then the halving of the point.
The way I can see this not being a draw exactly like the one Yasser is describing would be... No, let's continue along the same lines. Let's put this position with a doubled rook on d5. Let's put the rook... Let's make some kind... Yeah, let's go like rook d5, d3.
Yes, dropping it
and
all
black
the way
goes, let's say, king e8.
King e8?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to... I don't think white has any winning chances. I
so
think
you want to put the king... You want to change...
Yeah. So let's say we continue making different moves. We go, I don't know, a3 or something. Yeah,
king b3. Let's say.
Black goes rook f7, and then you allow king d7.
Okay.
And then maybe you could experience some discomfort.
Right.
Because that position, the d6 pawn becomes a target. Black could also maybe start expanding on the king side. But there are ways not to let that happen ever.
Right. Well, even this, Peter, I must say that after, for example, d7 check, you're going to put your king on d8 most certainly. How do I do it with... I get my rook to the 6th rank, right? So that I'm willing to trade off the d7 pawn for the b6 pawn.
The players have been making some moves. a3 on the board.
Let me refresh my... By the way, I saw... Alireza is beginning to speed up the tempo of his moves.
I think the perpetual that we've been describing for a while now is very much incoming. I think both of them realize that, I think he'll play something like rook d3 or rook 5 d2 here very, very quickly.
Right.
And then king e6, check king f7 is very likely to happen, because this really does look like a position that nobody wins, ever.
Although, I must say, I don't see any fears if we do have rook d5, d3. I agree, king e6 is a repetition, but king e8, just basically saying...
I think the issue here is I will play rook e3 check.
Okay.
And if you go king d8, I will put the rook on g6, and I will ask you, are you actually playing for a win with my rook on g6 being as active as it is?
Rook to g3.
Or rook e6, g6, or...
Oh, pardon me, rook e6 to g6, pardon me.
Both of those seem like very, very logical.
And I'll put my rook on f7.
Rook f7, let's say I don't want...
Living life on the edge.
Yes. And we get something like this.
And I put the other rook on d2 so that I never blunder rook f2.
Gotcha.
And then, who's ever going to make progress here?
Right. Looks like a draw in view. But
well, we're going to keep an eye on this game, but in the meantime, we are going to go to Anastasia, who has a special guest with her.
Yes, indeed. Welcome. Fabiano Caruana is here with us in the studio. The game with Maxime Vachier-Lagrave just finished in a draw, not surprisingly, for this tournament so far. So how would you assess your participation at the moment in this event?
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange tournament. I missed a huge chance yesterday of completely winning. During the game, I started to feel absolutely exhausted for some reason. Like I couldn't calculate a single move. And I was trying to sit there, trying to calculate, and then I got low on time. And yesterday was a big miss. Today, I think, was a very stable game.
How was it to play on Thanksgiving, by the way? Happy Thanksgiving for you.
Happy Thanksgiving, yeah. That's, well, you know, as chess players, we play during all sorts of days, and I've played on my birthday and during, Christmas as well, yeah, and all sorts of occasions, so it's not too unusual. And I think tonight will be a nice celebration. yeah, and at least I didn't lose. That's the main thing, yeah.
That's important. Yes,
a bad game.
I think also it's important. It was an important game. Yes. By the way, the game between Richard Rapport and Alireza just finished in a draw. Yes, after repetition. So sorry for this break. Let's come back to this one. I think it was also important for the standings and for overall standings of Grand Chess Tour. Have you thought about it a little bit?
Not too much. It's again very unusual. A player who withdrew, well, out of necessity. Jan-Krzysztof got ill in some way, so hopefully he recovers. But again, very unusual yet. So like last year, we're missing a player from the tournament. So it's. For me, it's a bit of a strange situation because I'm going to have 3 blacks in a row.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, okay, I guess it's not the biggest deal, but it's very unfortunate, of course, for the tournament, and also I feel bad for Jan-Krzysztof because it's always unpleasant to come all this way, and you get ill or something like that, and you can't play anymore. So that's quite unfortunate.
Yeah, it's affected also your situation. I think now there are no chances that you will end up in the last place. I'm sorry to say so.
Yeah.
I don't think it was the case, but I mean, worst case scenarios are not possible anymore.
Yeah, that's true. But anyway, I'm hoping not to have a bad tournament. So we'll see. So far, everyone's having the same tournament.
Yes.
Maybe we'll be one big happy family at the end of the tournament, carrying first through last place. Could happen.
It's possible, yes.
It's probably not going to happen, but I think today we played a correct game. Like, I don't think anything happened that was special. It was a bit sharp. But okay, I think this is kind of known theory.
It was played in Rapid and Blitz. They mentioned the game.
Actually, it was played, Lekwang and Alireza played the game.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that Maxime made it interesting at this moment because I think that the game between Alireza and Lekwang, Lekwang was white, was like this, something like this, basically. I forget exactly which version they got this endgame in, but it was this endgame, which is equal. And Maxime made it interesting with this move. Leads again by force to this situation with like 2 pieces versus
rook and
versus
pawn,
rook. Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I get the pawn by force, quite important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's kind of forcing because, like, he doesn't want to get this kind of situation where if I put my rook on c2, he's suddenly stuck. He can't move his pieces. And also, if bishop c1, I can take on f2, but also I have this move rook c2. I wasn't 100% sure, but I calculated some lines where I'm grabbing this pawn, and then very often I also grab this pawn where I play like c5 here, and my a pawn becomes very fast. But also I thought I can take on f2.
When did you get this ending? What was your feeling? Like, you were a bit shocked, or it was kind of normal?
No, well, I kind of knew that it's possible, and I didn't know the details, but I figured that it's equal, and it was easy to figure out the lines. Like, I was calculating various moves here. Of course, white has... actually, there was like an option to play rook c2, I think. But then this was kind of important, I think. That bishop b4, rook b2, then suddenly he has his knight d3. This is very unpleasant.
And
then he gets this one, and he attacks c7 as well. So I take here, and yeah, I was looking at some various moves here, like knight d7, trying to get to c5. But always I can attack his pawns, like knight d7, rook c2, or even rook a2 very often is coming. And then, yeah, if the bishop's on b4, I have a5. And, okay, I wasn't surprised by this, but this leads to a forcing sequence, because I liquidate some pawns, so here it's clear that black cannot really risk too much here, because it's only 1 pawn left, and for him to capture this pawn, there's only one way. He has to put the bishop on a5 and knight on c5, because if he puts knight on b8, like let's say here he plays knight d7, f5, knight b8, then he gets in trouble with a4, a5, sorry. I guess it's not real trouble, but I thought, okay, maybe my pawn runs to a4, or maybe I can just trade pawns with the draw. So there's...
So he needs to put the bishop on a5 in order to do it, to block the pawn, right?
Yeah, there's no other way. Like also knight c6, I can move my king, like king h7, I thought. And again, knight
and
b8,
again the
a5,
same, a5, yes.
So he put the bishop there. I was kind of expecting knight d7 first, but I don't know if it makes a difference. Okay, here I was like looking at various moves. They all looked like a draw to me. Like I thought f4 first, but then I thought maybe h4. I don't know. Maybe h4. Like if gh4, then suddenly he gets the stable square for his knight, which of course is also a draw. And if king g7, I thought maybe h5. Puts the knight on g4. Okay, I didn't. Anyway, with the knight on g4, he can't move. but I was like trying to be super, super accurate. Okay, I played rook c2, so now h4, I just advanced my king, there's no point. And okay, he went here, here, king g1, because I'm threatening f3, and we just repeated moves. I was thinking sometime about h5 here. With the point that, okay, knight c5, then g4, take, knight a6, g3. Anyway, king f1, I didn't see a way forward, but at least here, like, he has to maybe worry.
Because if you go to g1, king f3, yes.
Yeah, and then he goes to like g4, for example. Here, okay, here I actually don't want to do this because now I'm the one who has to prove the draw. But then I was thinking, well, yeah, I play h5 and he plays king f1, so g4 is not possible. So I play like king f7, knight c5, g4, take, again, knight a6, g3, but then I thought knight d3, and I was like, maybe I'm losing my f-pawn, like g3, bishop b6, so he threatens knight f4, and I thought, anyway, like, worst case, this position, like, everything is a draw at this moment, because, okay, he's left with one pawn, but why should I do this? So I just played rook c1, king f2.
And just forced
we just,
the draw.
Just repeated moves.
Yes, of course. I mean, it's also Thanksgiving today. I was wondering if you saw this tweet from Magnus yesterday that he was celebrating like 10th anniversary of winning the World Championship title. And he also published this photo where he jumped inside of the swimming pool fully, with his clothes on. And so, Fabi, at the moment when you become the world champion, what are you going to do? What is the craziest thing you will do? Let's agree from now.
Oh wow, the craziest thing. I don't know. I can't say yet. I think this has to be spontaneous, right?
Yes, maybe, but
if I don't think it's like when, because I think it's more if. But if I become world champion someday, then definitely I'll do something crazy. But I'm not sure yet. Let's keep it spontaneous.
Exactly, yes, okay. I hope I will be invited to take some photos, yes?
Of course.
Agreed.
There will be some, well, we don't know what it will be, but... No, I thought that, Magnus had a good celebration, of course, in 2013. I think there was also some people who, like when it was winter, let's say in Vachier-Lagrave, if they won the tournament, they would like jump into the North Sea.
Yeah, I remember such bets, yes.
Yeah, so this is kind of crazy. I mean, you don't want to like win a tournament and then you get carried out into the North Sea and nobody ever sees you again. So maybe there's some like safer
ways to celebrate.
Yeah. Magnus did it by jumping in the fountain, right? This is a bit safer.
Yes. For sure. I mean, you'll have the candidates in April, yes, in Canada, so maybe we can also discuss this, but okay. Let me give you the chance to celebrate properly Thanksgiving. Thank you so much, Fabio, for the interview, and all the best in the next rounds.
Thanks, Nastya.
Thank you, Anastasia. And because it's Thanksgiving, let's wind it up, Peter.
Yeah.
Final thoughts of these outstanding drawn.
My impassioned speech about variance is looking dodgier and dodgier by the second.
It's the accuracy and strength of the field.
And also fatigue, apparently, because Fabio was completely exhausted yesterday and couldn't calculate. We just heard it from the horse's mouth.
True that.
Whatever the reason is, 12 out of 12 so far, and yeah, we are entering territory where we will at some point need to find plausible reasons for this.
Right.
I don't quite understand what's going on, apart from once again restating the fact that this is a very, very strong field. This is the absolute best in the world playing against each other, and this is not as statistically improbable as all that, but still, 12 in a row.
12 in a row. Well, my pick, MVL. We're all singing Kumbaya because nobody has the lead.
I love that quote from Fabiano Caruana. Everybody's having the same tournament. And perhaps everyone will be a happy family by the end of it. And there you can see there's a big tie there for first place of 1.5 points. And the only reason that the three players are on 1 point is because Jan-Krzysztof Duda has withdrawn from the event and their results have been nullified.
Well, as we go to our Thanksgiving turkey dinner, we want to wish our audience a very happy Thanksgiving as well. Thank you for joining us. Same time, same channel. Tomorrow, we'll hope you join us. Bye-bye.
Happy Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.
See you then.
This has been a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club. Any reproduction or distribution of this content without the express written consent of the St. Louis Chess Club is prohibited.